But I think the development of full artificial intelligence will spell the end of the human race.
It's a flying object, and we don't know what it is. I would hope somebody is checking it out.
With the rocket or whatever, but incredibly fast, opposite direction. They were too fast to be an airplane.
I'm glad the Pentagon is looking at this, because if it poses a threat, I want them on top of it.
Well, the craft generates its own gravitational field.
Kevin, you said there's lights in the sky?
The internet has become the command center for criminals and terrorists.
911, what's your emergency? I need help, please help me!
Aliens won't let it happen. You know, that's what we're instructed to say.
Roswell, Area 51. Alien kept deep under the ground.
1, 0, 1, 1,
self-serving. You're here for a reason. You're listening to Troubled Minds Radio. Broadcasting live from a secret bunker just off the extraterrestrial highway. Somewhere in the desert sands outside of Las Vegas. From somewhere in space-time, loosely labeled Generation X on planet Earth. And asking questions of you in earnest into the digital darkness. Good evening and welcome to Troubled Minds Radio. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, Rockfin, Rumble, Twitter, Twitch, D-Live, and Kick. We are broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting. And, of course, 88.4 FM Auckland, New Zealand on the Underground Media Network. Tonight, we're taking your calls as we go deep into All Hallows Eve. Now, you know me. The way I look at the world is not like most people. I mean, we're probably kindred spirits here, and that it's fascinating that you can look at the world multiple ways and consider multiple conclusions, okay? And you know me and my conclusions, I don't like them. I like sort of the open-ended aspect of ideas instead. And tonight is really at the core of what Troubled Minds has always been about, okay? And what I mean is that we are manifesting, okay? Manifesting realities. And we're doing it not just in a singular fashion, of course, because you could have, you know, for instance, a Wall Street banker has a particular reality that they live in. They have to be sort of on the game with, you know, all the ins and outs of the things that they need to know regarding whatever nonsense they're up to, right? I mean, just the TPS reports of their work life, of their everything, basically their entire life as it comes together, right? That's part of it. But then you could say, I don't know, a Catholic priest, for instance, you know, is something completely different. The work life, the personal life, all the things are going to be completely different in terms of what reality is to those individuals. But then, of course, in the larger context, you can look at it as, well, we're manifesting this collective reality that might be complicated, as usual, right? Complicated is the answer, and that's always been my answer. I think a lot of these concepts are complicated, and it's difficult to come to conclusions. So it's a good way to start and to drop the disclaimers. There's no truth to be found here. All the disclaimers do apply. It's just ideas, kind of talking about the old ways, the new ways, what it means to be a human in the modern sense, and why these sort of old ideas really haven't died off. And I think there's a good reason for it. I really do. And instead of drawing conclusions, I think it's better to draw possibilities and draw upon the layers of possibilities as part of it. So as you know, we are taking your calls at 702-957-1037. You can click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. We'll put you on the show. It's as easy as that. Now, what the hell is going on with this sound? Did you guys hear that click, the pop? I just redid all the damn audio, and it pisses me off when something goes wrong. Anyway, okay, so where do we begin? There's so many things here to start with, because let's start with this one. Now, there's this old tale. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this, but it's called the Philip experiment. You ever heard of this? So the Philip experiment was a 1972 parapsychology experiment conducted in Toronto, Ontario, shout out our Canadian friends out there, to determine whether subjects can communicate with fictionalized ghosts through expectations of human will. Right? Now we're cooking with gas. Suddenly things get real almost instantly, because the idea resonates back with tulpas, right? It resonates with, we've talked about the egregores and how it fits into the larger context of manifestation. And so in this particular space, it's strange, because this thing, let's see, where's the write-up? The write-up had a better spot on it. I'm sorry, I'm running just a smidge behind, and I have a disaster here of things that I wish I didn't have a disaster of, but bear with me. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. What do we got? Let's see. Okay. So one moment, please. That pop, that's killing me. Okay. We're going to have to deal with it. Okay. What do we got? Okay. So here's the deal, right? Regarding this particular thing, the Philip experiment, 1972 parapsychology in Toronto, Canada. Now, Toronto, Ontario, of course, Canada. The third layer of that. But okay, let me find it. Let me find the thing here. Like I said, sorry about that. So unpro of me, but sometimes things break halfway through setting everything up. Without a team, it can be a bear, as they say. Okay, so let's see. Thought forms. Yep. Nope. Yep. Okay, but basically the idea is this. All right, is that they determine that. The experiment was this. Let me just read straight from the thing. Now, I hate Wikipedia, but let's roll with it, because I just can't find the good blurb. But it is in the write-up if you guys are interested. Link will be in the description down below, so please check it out. So the experiment was conducted by Toronto Parapsychological Research Society, led by mathematician geneticist Dr. A.R. George Owen, and overseen by psychologist Dr. Joel Witten. There's a bunch of other people in here. I'm not going to read all their names. Again, it's called the Philip experiment if you want to look it up. Their goals were to create a fictional character through a purposeful methodology, and then attempt to communicate with it through seance. Weird, right? A little bit strange. The character created and agreed upon was named Philip Aylesford, Aylesford, referred to as Philip during the test. His fictional history partially coincided with actual events and places, but with multiple contradictions and errors. He was born in 1624 in England, had an early military career, and was knighted by the age of 16. Oh, those dirty noblemen. He was involved in the English Civil War and became personal friends with Charles II, working for him as a spy. Oh, the clandestine type. Philip was unhappily married to a woman named Dorothea, and later fell in love with a Romani girl who was accused of witchcraft and burned at the stake. In despair, Philip threw himself from the battlements because he didn't stand up for his lover in church, as they dragged her through the mud and made all manner of accusations, and then burned her at the stake. And he shut his mouth because of the shame of the affair. Okay, a horrific story, right? Except they were, again, it's fictional. This is a fictional thing. And they were trying to manifest this through their collective intention, through their collective will, even collective creation. Okay, and so they did it in that aspect of, so let's create this entity, semi-historical, at least in some places, and we're basically creating an entity that never existed through again, collective will, collective creation. But the bizarre part is that supposedly they were able to eventually, through some trial and error, do the seance and eventually communicate with Philip, with this actual Philip character. Which is strange, right? Because Philip doesn't exist. And so the seance was one of those situations where they're manifesting their collective knowledge of an entity that is not real, but suddenly they are now manifesting the reality of that character who is now suddenly communicating with them. And it goes back to the tulpa, it goes back to thought forms, chaos magic, a lot of the stuff we always talk about. But also it goes back to the idea of that the initial tulpa, the thought form itself, and the collective version of it would be the egregore. And we've talked about that quite often in the past. And so the question becomes, is any of this possible? it seems like, as usual, no conclusions, a good thick maybe from me. But because, of course, for the sake of conversation, damn it, I keep hearing that pop. It's on the phone line. I know exactly what's happening. Sorry about that. I apologize for the audio. Anyway, Toronto, shout out. I see you guys. Okay, but that's the deal. That's what's on my mind tonight. And so the question is not just, let's say, with the Philip experiment and manifesting a fictional character that now can communicate with you through, quote, seance or something to that effect, right? Is it possible that we're manifesting folklore, something like the Jersey Devil, which I was reading extensively on tonight because I was like, okay, I want to do a folklore show. I want to link it back to Halloween, and how does this look? And so it got me into the Philip experiment, which I had never heard about at all. No, not allowed on Discord at all. Okay, what is going on with this? Oh my goodness gracious. Awesome. Okay, on Discord, by the way, you can jack up all the sounds and manage all that yourself. Sorry about that. Let me double check why that might be, and then we'll take a quick break. Get a word from our sponsor. Thank you for the heads up on that. Everything should be fine. Test 1 2. Good evening. Hello. All right. Yep. I didn't change anything on Discord other than the channels. Okay. Anyway, so there we go. What exactly what is happening with this, and is it possible that something like Halloween, All Hallows Eve, Samhain, and this seasonal aspect of it is could be different depending on how we look at it, how we believe the things that we believe. Okay, that is the basis of this, and it gets even more weird because there are other angles to kind of rabbit holes to chase down regarding this aspect. But it starts with this the Philip experiment. If you're not familiar with it, I ran out of time, so I didn't link it in the description. I'll drop these in the chat as we go. But it is a wild thing to consider that we can create these things and then possibly even communicate with them. Real? Nah? Or somewhere in between? That's what's on my mind tonight. Don't go anywhere. Be right back. More Troubled Minds coming up in exactly 1 minute after a quick word from our sponsor. In this case, that would be Human Inspiration. Do not go anywhere. Be right back. In a world increasingly shaped by AI, human inspiration remains the beating heart of creativity. Alien Skin by Tremble, a hauntingly beautiful piano ballad, reminds us that while algorithms can mimic art, the raw, unfiltered emotions of human experience are irreplaceable.
So here I sit, locked in my room again.
Written and composed by Jesse Ian in collaboration with Todd Smith, this progressive masterpiece delves into the depths of internalized grief and the silent toll of artistic compromise. As AI reshapes our reality, Alien Skin stands as a testament to the timeless power of human emotion and the complex beauty that only true artists can evoke. Experience the haunting beauty of Alien Skin by Tremble and support human inspiration. Available now on iTunes. And welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm Michael Strange. Let us continue, shall we? All right, so this is the deal. So the Philip experiment, back to this. This is what I was looking to find. So the Philip experiment stands as one of the most intriguing investigations into human consciousness and its effects on physical reality. This is in the write-up. In 1972, a group of Toronto-based researchers set out to test if they could create a ghost through sheer belief and intention. They deliberately fabricated the character named Philip Aylesford, as I said, crafting an elaborate historical backstory set in 17th century England. Philip was created as a tragic figure. As we said, they're a nobleman who fell in love, yada yada, blah, 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 burned at the stake, all the stuff, right? The researchers, blah, 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 gathered regularly to conduct seances, fully aware that Philip was fictional. At first, nothing happened. Then, after months of focused sessions, strange phenomena began occurring. The group reported receiving intelligent responses through table raps. 1 knock for yes, 2 for no. The table would move across the room, seemingly of its own accord, and even levitate. Love to see the video of this if they have it. Wild stuff, right? Again, believe it or not, it's just a concept here. Most striking were the specific communications that seemed to come from Philip himself, providing historically accurate details about his supposed era that none of the participants knew beforehand. Is that real? Is it not? Is it someplace? So basically, they've channeled through this entity, through this fictional entity, a time and place. And suddenly, we're told again, I guess I'd have to go find the actual documentation and read up on all the things, which I just don't have time to do, as you know. If you guys know a little bit more about this particular thing, I'd love to hear it. But if this entity is able to channel not just ideas of its fictional life back into the, quote, future from this time in the past, they've kind of created a psychological wormhole of sorts from this space at least when they were doing it. And what was the year again? Was it 1972? Yes, correct. From 1972 back to when Philip was supposedly walking the land, which again, he was not. We know he's not. They admitted themselves and they made it up. So it's still sort of like a manifestation of that idea that goes back through some sort of wormhole, time travel wormhole, and maybe details are coming through from this space and they've anchored it and they were able to actually communicate with it through this collective intention, through this force of will, and I don't know, what do we call it? Chaos magic or something to that effect. But so the experiment continued for several years, according to the good old AI here. And it says, with Philip's manifestation growing stronger, he developed a personality consistent with his invented backstory, displaying a particular fondness for military matters and becoming evasive when questioned about his death. The phenomena were documented on film and witnessed by numerous observers, including skeptical scientists and journalists. So if this is real, personally, I want to see this stuff. And now that I know about it, I'm going to dig deep into this and see if I can find some interesting tidbits. Maybe the video exists. Video footage of this would be incredible. But basically, that's the question tonight is if you create an entity through collective will, it goes back to the Slender Man effect. We've talked about that in the past, but you can also look at pretty much anything in folklore. As I said, the Jersey Devil, I was reading up on that and a bunch of other wild folklore ideas and stories. And I was trying to dig into some stuff here in Vegas, kind of around the desert area down here. And it's rich in wild stories because just history has a way, right? It has a way of doing these things. Yeah, what OG Skywatch says, if there was a video, it would be a movie. They did make a movie out of this, by the way. The movie is, what is it? So the experiment loosely inspired the horror films The Apparition, which was released in 2012, or The Quiet Ones, released in 2014. I've seen neither of those movies, so I can't vouch for them, but anyway, so as you know, this is from Wikipedia. The experiment has been criticized for lacking solid controls and providing ambiguous results due to the unreliability of seances. No crap, Wikipedia. No crap, right? And repeated tests, which created fictional characters named Lilith, interesting, and Humphrey yielded similar results under similar circumstances and were also deemed inconclusive. Okay, like I said, this is a new one to me, the Philip experiment, but the idea of tulpa manifestation is not. We've talked about this quite a lot, but in this case, we're doing sort of the egregore in that sense, where it's a collective manifestation of the will of a group, and you can look at the 49er faithful or whatever, and the Yankees fans out there, it's similar, okay? Except in this case, it's a smaller group of people into parapsychology and considering that maybe they can invent something and then possibly create the manifestation aspect of it and be able to eventually communicate with it. And so that to me, again, is mind-blowing, nutter butter stuff, amazing. But of course, it also kind of sits on the edge of reality, right? Do you believe any of that stuff? I don't know. I don't know what to think. Per usual, you know me, as Tim Cast always says about himself, I am also a paranormal milquetoast fence sitter because I don't know. I don't really know. But these ideas do definitely resonate in a lot of ways and make me wonder what the hell is going on with our reality. Like I said, if you have a particular individual that, like me, for instance, just because I know me better than I know most other people, use me as an example. I'm constantly thinking about folklore, constantly thinking about mythology, constantly thinking about how modern society is shaped by these ideas that we definitely don't give a ton of credit to. And that's why I think it's a mistake and why I do this show. It's a mistake to really kind of just forget the past, because the past has been incredibly important in creating what we experience collectively in the present. Okay, you get what I'm saying here. So it gets wild when you start to think that, imagine, so let's rewind, I don't know, a couple thousand years or something. Okay, just for a thumbnail sketch here. A couple thousand years, and imagine if there was a particular aspect of, Halloween, Samhain, All Hallows Eve, Dia de los Muertos, whatever you want to call it, as the veil thins. If there was a particular idea that changed, okay, as part of that collective will or intent or collective knowledge base that seems to sort of create this larger aspect of itself, it seems to grow collectively. Each season, we know more about it. We start to celebrate it. The pumpkins come out, the lighting the candles, the festivals, and then eventually we're giving out, candy, which is terrible for kids. And you get it. There's all this other stuff. But imagine if one little thing changed. 2,000 years ago, 3,000, 5,000 years ago, whatever, you pick the date. And suddenly we're experiencing a completely separate idea of what All Hallows Eve might be. Samhain, Dia de los Muertos, whatever. You call it All Saints Day, whatever you want to call it. But definitely this particular time has that natural resonance that makes us want to manifest our own human imprint into it collectively. Okay. And so if one little thing changed 5,000 years ago, then suddenly today we might be having a completely different Halloween experience. You get my meaning, right? So historically we are manifesting these ideas, and could you call them spirits? Could you go back to that Philip experiment and say that, okay, something like a modern holiday is actually an egregore, and it is an egregore that we've been building collectively forever, for generation after generation, through word of mouth and campfire stories and all of the things that go bump in the night that manifest in the space of right now, decorating your house with cheap plastic stuff made in China, and then handing out yellow dye number 5 to kids when they knock on the door, also in plastic things made in China, right? And I'm just being cynical here, so don't mind me. I think Halloween's fantastic, but you get the idea. There's definitely something here that we've created together as a collective that is now fully resonant, fully been realized. And what do you think it would take to change it? So go back to, again, 5,000 years, 2,000 years, whatever it was. But then now, what will it take to change this idea from the modern space that it is, and let's say 1,000 years from now, turn it into something else entirely? Look, I don't know. I don't know what that answer is, but it is a fantastic thought experiment. And back to the Philip experiment, which is, again, another fantastic experiment, in my opinion. 1972 parapsychology. Actually collectively manifesting an entity that is not real. But then after months of collective intent, seances, trying to communicate with this entity that is not real, suddenly we're told that this thing starts communicating back. And how weird does that get? That's really kind of what's on my mind tonight. I see you guys in the chat. Thanks for being cool and chill and understanding that it's just me on the production team and I'm doing my best. But you get the idea here. And so how weird does it become? It is the Slender Man effect. That's also in the, we've talked about that quite often on the show, but it's also in the write-up if you want to kind of catch up on some of these ideas. But it is incredibly odd. There's a few things. I'll just tease a few of the things here. And then we'll take a break. We are taking your calls if you want to be part of the show tonight, 702-957-1037. But of course, this fits into the Tulpa tradition. We've talked about this where monks through intensive meditation and visualization can manifest thought forms into semi-physical reality. And in that capacity, they even say they can go rogue. They can, shout out Matt Sal, they can go rogue Tulpa, as we've talked about in the past, and become something else. And you manifest them in a particular way, and they start that way, but then they start to, through the collective intent of everything they experience around them, even inadvertently, you can't sort of guide them. They end up collecting energy from the world itself and start doing weird stuff. Okay. You see what I mean? And so do you believe any of that? First off, do you believe any of that? So the Tulpa tradition fits into this, of course, the Philip experiment of 1972, like we talked about. And it's odd, right? It's odd. It is manifestation of an entity that we know is not real, but then if we give it enough focused intent, then it becomes real. So imagine if, let's say, Philip, the friendly ghost, turned into a cartoon or something like Casper the Friendly Ghost. Let's say it was Philip instead. And in the modern sense, they carried on this tradition, and suddenly, instead of being a footnote in history and parapsychology, it ended up becoming something quite a bit greater. Now, we would believe in the story of Philip the Ghost, even though we knew very well that the initial origin story was a farce. So what are we dealing with here? Not just, let's say, with Halloween and everything else, but the larger context of what we believe. And how easy is it to change that, not just, let's say, as an individual, but also as a collective? And that, my friends, is what's on my mind tonight. I hope you're doing well. Like I said, just trying to catch up here, pushing all the buttons, doing all the things. But if you want to be a part of the show, I'd love to hear your thoughts. 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. We got James in Michigan coming up, Salcedo Paranormal, and your calls as well. This is a weird one. And of course, we are in spooky season. How you guys feeling? Everybody got your costumes ready? And are we ready to manifest Oh, I don't know, what Mike looks like as a clown coming up very soon. Or not, I don't know. What do you think? 702-957-1037. Is it possible that Folklore and Hyperstition can actually manifest reality itself? Be right back. More Troubled Minds coming up. Do not go anywhere. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, Rockfin, Rumble, Twitter, Twitch, D-Live, and Kick. We are broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting. And, of course, 88.4 FM Auckland, New Zealand. Tonight, we're taking your calls as we talk folklore. Hyperstition, recreating All Hallows Eve. Is it possible that through collective will, collective intent, we can change the fabric of reality itself? Now, of course, maybe not reality, but maybe the perception of reality collectively. We can start there and then talk about how maybe that manifests reality on its own. But I don't know. It goes back to this Philip experiment of 1972, which I thought was wildly fascinating. I'd never heard of that. But it is something that has always been on my mind regarding just how people look at the world. Again, you can look at the materialist version of the world, and there is no magic. It doesn't exist. It's all science. It's all explainable by some aspect of consensus reality. But then, of course, if you look at a religious fundamentalist worldview, it's not quite the same. There is room for magic. There's room for a creator. There's room for all manner of things. Of course, science as well. But recognize how the worldviews can change, not just how we see things, but possibly how we manifest them collectively. Real now, somewhere in between, and happy Samhain as we roll into it. Hope you guys are doing well tonight. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. We'll put you on the show just like this. Let's go to James in Michigan. Salcedo Paranormal. What's up, brother? How are you tonight? And go right ahead.
I'm okay. Hopefully you can hear me.
Yep, loud and clear. You sound great.
Good. This is something that's always on my mind as well. This idea of humans making whatever it is they experience out there that seems unexplainable. I always wonder if at some point in the past one person saw something they couldn't explain, whether it was a shadow that moved or a weird light in the air, in the sky, or in any of their dwellings or near their dwellings, and over time they tried to explain what it was, and that focus on whatever it is they saw that may have been either natural or may have been something paranormal in a way. They either enhanced what it was already, or they made a new version of it from just them talking about it and sharing their experience with everybody else in their area, who then started focusing on it and wondering what it was. And somehow they end up creating whatever it was again for people to come. And I always wonder, is the paranormal completely created by people, or is there something else? And I have my views on that, but that's not really as important. So I've always wondered about that, which came first. Was it anything paranormal or anything other than us, or did everything that we think as being other, being separate from us, is it all from at least some part of humans, a group of humans in the past?
Yeah, that's a wild one, because I think, if you go back to, we talk about primordial fear and that type of stuff a lot on the show. And imagine, so things that go bump in the night, people get scared because we didn't have, fire was so easily accessible, going back to the primordial idea of anthropology as we understand it in the modern time. And so that sort of a fear aspect, the mechanism of fear itself and the unknown of what might lurk in the dark may have been, as you're describing, manifested the paranormal entirely. is that you start to let your mind wander. You start to tell stories of things that are out there, the possibilities of what they could be. Somebody sees one, somebody sees the Jersey Devil running around. And, you know, I'm not making fun of that at all, because if these are thought forms we have manifested culturally and kept alive generationally, then it doesn't seem ridiculous that people see these things. And we've discussed the idea of pop-out topoids and, this idea of, fear manifesting as something visual, some visual, maybe plasma phenomenon, or, we've talked about this stuff in the past. I like to call them primordial nature spirits, as they've been here with us forever, but it's something we don't quite understand. But back to what you were saying is, maybe that's it. Maybe we have manifested this paranormal aspect of reality through that initial things that go bump in the night before fire was ubiquitous. I don't know. I think it's a fascinating thing to consider. And maybe it is a chicken and the egg situation. And maybe all this stuff is all in our mind entirely. However, I don't mean we're crazy. I mean that we've manifested it, and now it is very real. I don't know. What else you got? Go ahead.
Yeah, this makes me think of, too, various sightings throughout time, even to today, in parts of the U.S. of humanoid figures with wings that appear to be monstrous in one way or another. And people will see them, and they'll see them either fly into the air, go up into the air, or come down. And when they see these figures, the wings won't move. There won't be any sound of flapping wings. It's like that they have these wings, but the size of them doesn't make sense for them to be able to fly to begin with, and they don't always move. So is that because it was something that people created at some point in the past, or is it something else? And I wonder about the. Of course, there may be other reasons for that, but I think one possible reason is that it's not necessarily a biological creature as maybe science would think of it. It is something else that is more image and in some cases sound and thought than an actual living creature.
Yeah, 100%. At least, again, conceptually, like I said, I'm not the arbiter of anybody's truth, as I always say, barely my own. But it's a fascinating thing. This is one I've never heard of. Now, do you think that back to the Philip experiment here, manifesting something that is not real, and we know it is not real, doesn't that seem like it flies in the face of manifestation? Because the entire premise is this thing is not real, and we all know it's not real, and then we sort of engage with it, the idea of it anyway, and then supposedly they're able to contact this thing through seance. That seems contradictory to what manifestation might be, right? I don't know. Have you heard of this Philip experiment? And if not, what is your thought on the idea of manifesting something we know to be false? Well, it would explain a lot about human nature, but what's your take on it? Go right ahead.
Yeah, the manifestation idea to me has always been wild, because how does that work for some people and not others in some cases? But yeah, I have heard of that experiment. I believe I tried to do some searching for videos online, and I think I found a couple, but also sending you videos to play on the show on the spot. I don't know if that works so well, and plus it might disrupt my audio of the show. So, but yeah, I wondered about that too. You hear people that talk about how they have paranormal activity in their homes, and this is what this made me think of. They somehow name whoever or whatever seems to be there. They'll just say, "Oh, that's George," or they'll pick a name, and then in some cases, they will, without knowing it, they will do research on the property or on the house, and find out that someone with that name did live there in a previous point in time. So, did they just make that up, or did they somehow pick up on energy, or even if it's a sentient being that's there, the spirit of this person, let's say, again, in this example named George, did they pick up on it, or did this being send that information to them without them even knowing it? And so I wonder how much is people creating things, but also if it's that and or people picking up on information from other points in time without even realizing it.
Yeah, well said. And I don't know, that's a good question. Regarding, let's say you get, George in the house or something, and the ghost, you name it sort of flippantly, but then maybe recognize that it's possible the entity was telling you all along that was its name. And so it goes back to the fictional part, the Philip part. Is it possible then that this Philip entity was actually real and was channeling to them in some capacity, trying to be remembered historically? You see what I'm saying? So how much does that stretch in a malleable space of space-time? And, going back to the 17th century or whatever, that's like I said, wild stuff. I don't know the answers, but the chicken and the egg aspect of the paranormal is certainly one of those things that makes you scratch your head and go, okay, well, I guess maybe all this stuff is possible then, at least conceptually. So what does it mean? And we got calls we got to get to. So a couple minutes left. Final thought here, and then you're welcome to sit, as you know.
I was just going to say, I know you have at least one call, so I'll sit in and I'll talk to you again when there's time.
Right on. You were the best. You know him. You love him. James Salcido. Go check out his books. Go check out his podcast. He's here on the network with us. He's got a radio show. All the rest of that stuff. The name of it is Salcido Paranormal. Salsido space paranormal. And wow, my brain just took a left turn at Albuquerque. Right. But go check it out. Link will be in the description down below. troubledminds.org/friends. The website is down right now, but when I get it fixed, it'll be proper, and you can still find it there. I won't change that link. But great stuff from James. We're talking tonight. Folklore and Hyperstition, recreating All Hallows Eve. Now, manifesting entities, not just tulpas, but then in the larger context, the egregore of a collective manifestation. Is it possible that we've, as James said very smartly there, created through human history the paranormal itself? That maybe it wasn't real, but now it is real because we've all sort of locked in, not all of us, but let's say a big enough portion of the population is locked into these ideas generationally that maybe we've created things that are real. Back to the Slender Man effect. We've talked about that in the past. And in this context, the Philip experiments that, it turns out that eventually through collective will, they were able to manifest this entity. Or is it more of the Slender Man effect where they contacted something else that was like, I'll be your Huckleberry, and was like, cool, I'll play Philip, but I'm not really Philip. You get it? If you're as always, one of the things that bothers me a little bit is you contact an entity, whether you believe that's real or not. Even if you think it's in your mind, what are you contacting? And if it is Philip, could it also not be Philip? Yeah. Well, 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. What do you know about this? And have you heard of this Philip experiment? And how strange does this get? Hang tight. We'll go to Robert at the top of the hour. Let's go to, I think it's Joseph in the Bronx. What's up, my man? You're on Troubled Minds. How are you? And go right ahead.
Hey, what's going on, man?
Hey, chilling, doing what we do. What do you know about this Philip experiment? Welcome to the thing.
Man, well, what I would say due to my studying, I believe that, like, when I was growing up, I'm 31 years old. I was born in 1993. But when I was growing up, I used to watch a lot of Ghost Hunters and, like those stories about the lady that killed her husband while he was sleeping on the couch, or the husband at the Valentine's Day massacre. I used to watch all of that stuff. And later on, during my understanding, I understood that energy leaves memory. It's just like water. So in the Bible, you have the waters above and the waters below. We breathe air, but it's H2O. So H2O is 2 hydrogen particles and 1 oxygen, which means we don't breathe oxygen. We breathe more hydrogen than we do oxygen, which creates the air that we breathe to supply our bloodstream. All right. So the majority of the science that we know to be proved, like the majority of the science that we know to be used in the sciences that people use to understand things is kind of wishy-washy. That means it's because there's a certain level of reality that people know how to manipulate, and they keep lesser classes of people that don't understand out of the loop. Now, the Philip case, the Philip understanding thing, right? That's probably a link to why we use Philip heads to screw people, to screw screws inside of wood and whatever we use to build at the moment. So I was listening earlier, and you said, well, there was this group of people, and they said there was this story about a guy that he had a lady that he didn't speak up for, and she was burned on the stake, and then later on he was killed. Am I correct?
Yeah, so he threw himself off of a wall, but that's a fictional story. They completely made it up to give this entity, to give the entity a backstory. But yeah, it's completely made up. It's not real whatsoever. But yes, you got that right.
And then the people that did that did a seance to see if they could get a connection through the spiritual realm. What that tells you is the same things we have going on today, whether it's through Project Bluebeam or just through average neighborhood people that indulge in certain practices that they have no knowledge of, but they have access to technology with. So what you have is a similar case to where Masons, Rosicrucians, Knights, Templars understand the allegory and the person as well, but the history of the person is whitewashed or secluded to a certain group of people. So the history of the Knights Templars, as common knowledge is to protect the Holy Grail and guard sacred things in the world. The Masons, you can only go up to the 33rd degree level because it is representation of the connection worldwide in which the powers that be have a connection to the understanding of Egypt and the practices and the ancient priesthoods that Jesus took part of. And he only lived up until 33 years. And after that, he traveled other different places. That's another representation of history being tucked away, while certain masses of the people don't get to understand that. So what I'm saying is nowadays, even in the Muslim community, even in the Satanist community, even in the Catholic community, they take part in certain rituals to which they allow somebody to die or pass away, and they utilize their understanding of technology to communicate with it and to guide it. There was this ghost hunter thing that I used to watch when I was a kid, where there was this old lady, this old white lady, that this group of people, they would go into a haunted house, and there was this lady that she would supposedly like communicate with the spirit and say, and when the spirit would get out of control and he would get in his poltergeist energy and start slamming cabinets and throwing things, she would be like, well, we're only here to help you. We want to help you cross to the other side, and we want to, and then everybody would get into the point to where they want to pray for the spirit to cross into the other side. And that gray area is what we're dealing with right now, because all of those people that have the ability and have the knowledge of this technology and this understanding nowadays, they don't believe in the other side at all. They choose to harness from it. They don't believe in the original point of contact, which is you can go there too. You can either go to limbo, or you can go to hell, or you can go to heaven, which is another place that Egypt people talked about. But the Roman Empire and what they put upon the people is necromancy. They teach the people that the Egyptians only worship death, and they celebrate that, and that's what Halloween is about. So the average person, the average scholar, whether you're a Mason, a Rosicrucian, or a Knights Templar, or whatever higher realm of society that you're a part of, you only know death as your fundamentals, as a way to communicate with the metaphysical realm around you. That's why it's extra hard. But I do believe, based off of my analysis of what you're talking about, that Philip was an actual person, and he was probably a person that was killed during those times, because the witch crusade, the witch hunt was another act upon stabilizing the purity within the royal families. The royal families, the Judites, the people that have a coat of armor that have a lion on it or a serpent, know the ancient practices that come from here to America, to Africa, to Europe, to China, and to India. Remember the Naga, and the Asians know about, the Chinese know about the dragon. and Egypt got the serpents already. And then the God of the Old Testament, Amun-Ra, and Yahweh both practiced the understanding of the ram, the serpent, and the lion. So a lot of that stuff is just because you can't trust everybody with the same amount of knowledge. I do believe that Philip probably was an actual person, and they understood that. And then some people that were in the back burner, and then when you have another generation that comes up, and you have a guy that's like 60 years old, and he's training an apprentice, he tells the guy that's 30 years old, okay, look into this, and we're going to do an experiment on this. And that's why they received some communication, because I've had communication from things that are unseeable.
Okay, so that was actually going to be my question for you. So hold on real quick. So you think that there is actually the possibility that this fictional entity that they created for a thought experiment and they did seances to contact, you think that person might have been real and it reached out through history somehow to tell these people to sort of resurrect him? Is that what you're saying here?
No. What I believe is every form of spirituality and every high level metaphysical religion and spirituality has a basis off of the persona and the character of Jesus Christ. But at the same time, you have business run off of the Merovingian bloodline, which is Jesus Christ. So it's an allegory and also an actual bloodline. Then you have politics. When you add that, you add mystery. You add a mystery person or a mystery god. If you watch, there's this one movie where I forget what it's called, but it's this guy from India. It's this guy that can go invisible. It's this guy that he takes a serum and he turns into like a Hulk type character. It's this thing it's like the Illuminati. It's just people from around the world that have a skill set, that have unnatural abilities and things of that nature. All of those sciences, like Hellboy. You ever watch Hellboy and you see like the agency that he's a part of and stuff like that, where it's just mythical people and mythical capabilities and things like that that are shut off from other things and stuff like that. And then when you go outside, if you even have an ounce of understanding of that to be true, when you go outside and you see how people react, you understand why they keep that from regular people. So like Tesla society, when you see a hurricane, right, or a tornado, let's use a tornado as an example. Whatever community you've lived in, if you lived in a city where there are buildings, the hurricane there's a certain type of masonry that is applied to the construct of buildings. Even in the city of New York, or in any city, which the hurricane knows how to direct past those buildings. It's called surface area. And inside of your home, you have a certain vibrational frequency that's attached to the walls inside of your home. Regardless of people that think that they can manipulate that on a daily basis or not, it's called surface area. And the hurricane, it's almost like it knows where the wall is, and it goes past it, and it finds an open area of chaos where there's just things laying around. That's the science that I'm talking about.
Okay.
And so this Philip character is literally, I believe, from my experience, because you and me, we're a man. We're intelligent, we're strong in our standing, everything. But when we can't get a woman to listen, is because there are other men that teach the science of Lilith and then the witch trials and things of that nature, where a lot of women were burned on the stake for being empowered and using a certain type of metaphysical understanding that the men wanted to overpower them with Christianity. So that's why you got a lot of people trying to hate on Obama, because he empowered the feminists, and they're overpowering and using the LGBTQ and things of that nature.
Well,
you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so,
I follow you. Well, it's basically just it's division, right? I mean, the most basic form of brainwash, can I say properly, is it's that division aspect of making us see what's different in each other and then hate each other for it. It is magic, at least in terms of manipulation, for sure. And so, yeah, I'm with you there. There's definitely some aspect of that they're using against us, and it's been like that for a long time. We got just to let you know, we got 1 minute left. 1 minute left. Go ahead.
All right. The only thing I'm saying is the same exclusivity that they have on the Merovingian bloodline as far as Jesus Christ, and then they give it. It's like a medicine. They give it to the lesser people, meaning the people that are not capable psychologically to understand it. They give it as an allegory. This Philip person can be an actual person that lived. And even the Nazis understand poltergeist and zeitgeist, and they understand that technology and knowing how to stimulate people to utilize the plasma energy of people that have passed away to manifest in our realm of things, to send messages and to affect it in a certain way. It's not a state of mind. It's more so an understanding, a collective understanding and utilizing technology. That's all I'm saying.
Right on. Very well said. Fire as always. I appreciate you listening. Thanks for the call. Thanks for staying up late with us, and happy Samhain to you. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great night. Thanks a lot. That's Joseph in the Bronx. One of our newer friends, but fantastic as always. All these amazing minds coming together and just lighting it on fire. Great stuff. Appreciate that. We're talking folklore and hyperstition tonight, recreating All Hallows Eve through intent, through collective intent, not just, let's say, personally, but collectively. And then, of course, through history itself. Is Philip real? And if you don't know who Philip is and you're just joining us, we'll tell you all about it in a moment. We got the Robert coming up in Pennsylvania, more from James if he's got it, and your calls as well if you want to be part of the show. 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. We'll put you on the show. It's as easy as that. Don't go anywhere. Be right back. More on the way. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, Rockfin, Rumble, D-Live, Twitter, Kick, all the things, broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting. And, of course, 88.4 FM, Auckland, New Zealand. Tonight we're taking your calls as we go back to the days of yore, as I like to call it. And I love to think about this stuff, but there was this experiment called the Philip experiment back in 1972. A team, a parapsychology team in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, shout out our friends in Canada, are manifesting this entity that's fictional. They created a backstory for this guy named Philip, lived back in 1624 England, and, this story that goes with it. And then they tried to, through seance, connect with this entity they knew was fictional. They created it as, a thought experiment of this tulpa or egregore aspect, and were wondering if they could, through seance, then contact this entity themselves. And it turns out, again, I haven't looked into the videos. James said there are videos out there on the interwebs, which I'm going to dig into this a little bit more. We'll circle back, of course, when I know a little bit more about it. But this was a fantastic thought experiment to me. And, whether you believe in, spirit boards and that type of stuff, I think it's fascinating as hell to consider this stuff might be real. And they said they were able to actually it took several months of these seance sessions before they actually got any hits back. And eventually Philip started contacting them through, knocks on the table and stuff like that. Supposedly the table started sliding around, all kinds of weird stuff. But of course, was that Philip at all? I know YY over on Rumble there said that they contacted an entity, like maybe a demonic entity that was posing as Philip to kind of fool them in some capacity. So what is going on with this? And what do you know about it? 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubleminds.org. Anything real quick, James, before we go to the Robert?
Nope. All good. Great call from Joseph. And I think all these things are possible. And that's one of the things about, I guess I do have one thing real quick, that is part of the issue with doing any kind of contact with beings you can't see or hear directly, and can't easily verify any of what they're saying at the time. That's always a possibility that it's not who you think it is that you're talking to.
Yeah, which is again kind of it gets the parallel to that prompt in an AI language thing, right? Which we just talked about a little bit recently, but it's a little strange that you're channeling the knowledge of the interwebs without a name. Maybe we should name it Philip. I don't know. Is it the AGI or the super intelligence should be named Philip? 702. 957-1037. Thanks, James. You're the best. Let's go to the Robert in Pennsylvania. Thanks for being patient, my man. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. How are you? And all yours, sir.
Okay. I gather from reading the Philip experiment article on Wikipedia that for the most part the experiment was a failure. They didn't seem like they really manifested in a visible entity, and they just took for granted that the vibrations in the table tilting on one leg and or sliding across the room was a sign that manifestation was there. But it occurred to me that maybe it's more like the scientist who tries to mix some minerals or chemicals together, trying to create something he wants to create, and creating something totally different, a surprise product. What I gather from what happened there, with the table moving and the tilting on one leg and the vibrations, is that what might have been the case there is that they were concentrating so deeply that they caused levitation.
So it wasn't Philip, it was them. It was light as a feather, stiff as a board. It was something like that, right? It's sort of the manifestation. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's been speculation that the human mind can, in deep concentration, cause levitation, something to move. Telekinescence, is that what I think it's called? And I think that's possible. What they really created, it wasn't Philip that was moving that table; it was their own concentrated energy.
Okay, I can buy that, and that seems to track in a lot of ways. We've talked about the 100 monkey effect, I believe it's called. Matthew in Colorado has brought up, the idea of those monks sort of meditating for several weeks or months in at some space in California that brought the crime rate down. I mean, is that science? I'm not so sure yet, but there is some level of that collective, let's say, energy impression that we can do together that might change these things. And so I think you may be onto something here. Regarding the creating a fictional entity, do you think that's possible to maybe in any capacity whatsoever? You said no, but do you think it would be possible to do this? Let's say it was, let's say they tried to channel a historic person that we knew actually existed. Do you think that's a real thing, or do you think that's some more, maybe we're fooling ourselves as what you described there? What's your take?
Well, there's some books out there, some on the supernatural that claims that whatever you think, actually comes into existence. All right, like for example, shadow people. All right, you might be able to create not something that is like human and with a soul, but some kind of phantom type of thing that really is just not much of anything. And I don't know how to say it better. I have to go back into that literature. I do have some of that here, but it's been a while since I've checked that out. No, I think that the power of the human mind to make something move is what took play there. That's, as a matter of fact, I'm surprised they didn't consider that and continue to do the experiment and in light of that it might be something different than what they were trying to do.
Yeah, well said. I'm not exactly sure, and I haven't read the literature on this, and like I know James said, there are some videos. I haven't done the deep dive into it, so maybe some of the things you're saying they did try and do, I don't know. I don't know enough about it, but it was good enough for me to kind of take it to a different contextual level and talk about everything in the periphery of. So what else you got regarding that? But of course, there's many ideas here and many questions to get into. But what else you got?
What was the question you were asking me before I said rudely interrupted?
Which question? I ask all kinds of questions. Well, manifesting entities and actually going to a historical, Charlemagne or something, and trying to channel Charlemagne from the past. Do you think that's a real thing? That was really the question, but then I got a little weird because that's what I like to do.
One thing I find really interesting from a writer's standpoint is how much concentration it takes to create characters that come to life on a page, and then published, and particularly when it comes to like science fiction writers, that type of thing, and then within 5 years, maybe a decade, the whole a lot of the concepts that were in the story or their novel actually manifest.
Yeah, so we're creating these things, and they become real in some context, like Jon Snow or something from Game of Thrones. Now, a lot of people knew about it before the TV show. Now everybody knows a lot about it after the TV show. So were we manifesting Jon Snow in real life? Maybe, maybe, if you know what I mean.
But he might be going under a different name.
The pseudonym.
We might be able to create the personality of Jon Snow, but he'd probably be under incognito, a different name.
Of course, Philip. Well, we'll just call him Philip because in the celebration of the hour, Philip makes some sense to me. But that becomes a thing. So regarding what else you got? I don't want to rudely interrupt your thought there. Go ahead.
Well, really, my thought is what I originally called on, is that I think that what they experienced there is the power of their own minds to make, to levitate, make something move. The energy that was coming from their deep concentration actually caused those events to happen. Not really, that some Philip showed up and moved it for them. We know about telekinesis. There are certainly people in the literature, in the historic literature, who have been able to make things move across the table, a pencil or whatever, by concentrating on it. I think that's probably what they were doing, and they didn't realize it.
Yeah, well said. Well said. And so if that's the case, then we can...
Telekinesis or telekinesis.
Yeah, I say kinesis, but I don't really know. I mispronounce half the things I say because I don't hear people say them. I read them and then I say them wrong. So I say, you say potato, I say potato, and it's all the same to me. It's all fine. But okay. So if that's the case, then, and people can actually do some level of telekinesis, then how much larger does it get? And can we manifest these other things, or even go back into the past, the future, this type of thing? And I know your take on the future. We've talked about this a lot, but are you able to channel entities from elsewhere in time that maybe are trying to tell us something in a particular moment that we need, or is that getting way too woo for you? What's your idea there?
Well, here's the thing. Something personal. When I was young, when I was like in grade school, like in 5th, 6th grade, it started around then. I used to, think about computers, all right? Having an actual computer in my home, even to the point where it was something like a tablet or a laptop. All right, now I'm talking about 1964, 65. All right, that I started thinking about that, and it was really an obsession of mine. I just deeply wanted that type of thing to come into existence. All right. Because I wanted to be able to have that and be able to make use of that. And that type of thing was never on the horizon that I know of from popular mechanics or anything like that. And then of course, we had the computer revolution. and the idea that you could, yeah, and the internet, the whole thing. I really did. I thought about that stuff a lot when I was that young, and thinking about it now, I realize that how did I know that? Why did that? Why was that an obsession of mine? As far as a daydream or something that I'd like to have been able to have, that the world would be able to have, but I did, and maybe that wishful thinking and that sort of stuff had caused some, something to manifest many years later and come into fruition.
Yeah, I think that's that we've talked about that in the past. The idea is like the next technological revolution being in the air. It's on all of our minds, and we're not even sure why, but we're thinking about it. We're dreaming about it even, and contextualizing it for what we would like our future to be, and then somebody invents it. It's a strange thing, and it's happened quite a lot. This is something we've talked about in the past as well. But what does that mean? Sort of that ether and the idea that's out there that's waiting for us to seize upon as a collective, as a civilization. It gets weird when you think about it in that context, right? It's out there. Somebody just needs to grab it and do it, and we're all thinking about it. But yeah, it's a weird thing.
I can't remember what it's called. There's a name for it. About when somebody, an individual reaches a conclusion, something that becomes part of the reality, and then it spreads. All right, it spreads from the 10 to 20, and sooner or later goes across the globe. It's like when there were any number of people who had the same thought of mind to create radio. All right. It suddenly bursts onto the stage on the planet. Yeah, I believe that. I believe that once somebody conceives of something, whether it's an emotional concept or it's a physical concept, that eventually, it doesn't. It's like a telegraph that goes to everybody that's on a planet over time, and everybody becomes, and then whatever that is, eventually gets manifested.
Yeah, that's the term I use. It's in the air. It's out there. We're all kind of dreaming about it, and then it does become a manifest thing. Like you said, the telegraph, the telephone, all the rest of that. And there's that weird, which kind of fits into the show tonight as well. That they say that there was a spirit phone supposedly created by Edison and Tesla, and this dueling thing they had. But
they certainly were working on it.
Yeah, exactly.
They were working on it.
Yeah, at least that's what we're told. I don't know. I wasn't around then, so I can't really vouch for that. Not suggesting you were.
I wasn't around then either, but I've read about it.
Exactly. Not suggesting you were. So okay. But I don't know, and that's the type of thing that makes me wonder about the resonance, or the resonant energy of a population or civilization, or collectively in a moment. I think there's things happening. Yeah, the morphic field, says Gaston. Exactly that. It feels to me like there's something more to this, even in the paranormal sense. What else you got? Go right ahead.
Well, then it brings up the other question. All right, why? Why all of a sudden does a significant part of the global population start to think about something different and something new, or some kind of different way of doing things? Why does it sweep over that? What brings that thought process to begin with?
You got me. I don't know the answer to that. It does seem a little bit weird, though. Morphic resonance is another way to put that. I don't know. We've talked about the noosphere, right? The sort of the field of ideas that are kind of always circulating and changing, and are in some cases going to be measurable in the future. There's a lot to it, and what does it mean, and who's trying to tell us something really becomes the question there, the fundamental question in my mind, and I don't know the answer to that. But it does seem fascinating that it's almost as if something out there is trying to tell us something in a moment and put it on all of our minds and sort of create that resonant energy into something tangible and real. And yeah, I don't know, wild stuff. But go ahead.
Two very historical things. First, Einstein. All right. Now, this is a man that really didn't seem to have much of a future. All right, in his early days, but he claimed he dreamed relativity. And then you have Tesla, who claimed that every invention that he came up with came to him in a dream, came to him from the cosmos. You there?
Yeah, test. I was about to ask you, are you there? I feel you. A dream came to him from the cosmos. Yep, we're listening. Go ahead.
Well, are you aware of that?
No, so I didn't know the Einstein part of it. I do know that he said that many of his conceptual thoughts, he was able to kind of close his eyes and imagine these things and sort of take off as if he was maybe astral traveling. I don't think he used those words, but in sort of the new age landscape, that's really what he would be describing. Is he would be able to daydream about theoretical physics and the universe and kind of inhabit those spaces with his mind and then come back with a better understanding of it. So I do know that. I didn't know about the actual dream space and that type of thing. So yeah, I've heard different spots, but not that exact thing. Yeah, wild stuff either way.
So it's really the cosmos or whatever mystical land exists somewhere else that's really sending this stuff down to us and making us manifest it.
It seems like it. It seems like there's something to that effect.
The Akashic records are a complete history of whatever from now until the end of time or whatever. But there's some speculation that everything that exists now and will exist in the future already exists there.
Exactly.
And it just waits for a proper time to send a signal down to Einstein or Tesla or
the Robert.
No, the guy that makes the electric cars. Elon Musk.
Yeah, Musk. Yeah.
Send stuff down, to a particular person. All right, to make this at that particular time.
Yeah, well, that's exactly one of the wild parts of what we talk about is where do ideas come from, and are they seeded in some capacity? And I think there may be something to that. Like I said, that morphic resonance.
And maybe maybe the cosmos seeded you, all right, and sent down for you to something for this podcast you have that you were to manifest that. It came to you in a you may have daydreamed about it, of doing it, but where did that thought come from? Why didn't you think about becoming an auto mechanic? As opposed to what you're doing now. Somewhere down the line, you kept thinking about this and you wanted to do this, and you manifested it.
I think so. I think you're right. And not only that, it's turned out more beautiful than I ever dreamed because of amazing people like you. Just to be honest on that, it's sort of go back to the formation of Troubled Minds in my mind. I was like, it would be really incredible to do something like Art Bell kind of did and be able to just talk to people about wild things. And then look at all these amazing people we met. It's been a blessing to me. And so
one of the things I've noticed on my Facebook page, how every day they'll put up there at the top your memories from, that go back different years. And one of the things that commonly comes up is one of your old shows. As I post, like I just posted this show tonight on my Facebook page. All right, it'll come up there, and I'll say, "My God, that was 6 years ago." All right, or that was back when he was with Frank. But also, in the last few years too, they come up. All right, and I think to myself, he hasn't talked about that topic in a while, and he should.
Okay, fire them away. Send me an email and say, Mike, you haven't talked about this in a minute, but Facebook, the algorithm has reminded me maybe this should be in the air again, and we'll give it a shot. You know how we can look at things differently now. Things have evolved in my mind and your mind because we're wiser than we were, and so I'm definitely open to those ideas. If you got an idea, send it to me, and I'll link it in somehow. You know me. I can almost make a narrative out of anything these days.
Okay, and you're about to go to break, so I'm going to get off. But now I think that what those people in the Phillips experiment proved is that you can make that telekinesis is real. All right, they just don't know what they did. And if they proved something. They don't know what they proved, but they proved something, and it had to do with their ability of concentrating their minds and making something move on its own. Good night.
Appreciate the call. You're the best. Take care. Robert, you know him, you love him. Go check out his book. It's called Stories from a Fractured Mind, the Robert Collection. As I always say, full disclosure, he sent me a couple copies for free. I didn't pay for them, but I did read it. It's really good. Like I said, it's a very Philip K. Dick meets Rod Serling, kind of that type of thing. A very troubled minds sort of thing. And as you can tell, he's very much one of us. Go check that out. Link's going to be in the description, or just search it yourself. Stories from a Fractured Mind, the Robert Collection. You can find it on Amazon. Probably order it tonight, get it tomorrow. And while you're there, grab James's book as well, Salcedo Paranormal Experiences. Got about a minute left, James. I got some stuff to get into, of course, but including, I guess I'll save it. It's probably too late in the thing here to get into it. But the idea of a hyper sigil. So we'll get into that in a second here, because this morphs into some weird space. But anything you got real quick if you want to add? If not, as you know, it's all good either way.
I guess I could talk for a little bit. No, I'm just kidding. A great call from Robert. I do wonder about, I wondered about this right from the beginning too. When first time I heard about this Philip experiment, is how do they know for sure, again, what they were, not only who they were communicating with, but if it was anyone else to begin with. Again, because of all the time that people have spent working on the ability to move objects with their minds. And then, of course, there's reports of people doing that without even meaning to in some cases. So that I always wonder about that possibility as well. But even if that's the case, and there's video footage of it, that could be interesting as well.
Yeah, I'm going to dig into that. Like you said, if there's video out there, I want to see this now. I'm like, what the hell? I went and watched those Betty and Barney Hill regression tapes, and that's scary. That's really scary. I wonder if this is equally scary. Yeah. Be right back. More Troubled Minds coming up. We're here with James. We've got Derek the Night Stalker coming up. I think it might be MJ on the line as well. We'll talk to whoever that is. Don't go anywhere. We're talking this manifesting stuff and beyond. Don't go anywhere. More Troubled Minds coming up. Be right back. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, Rockfin, Rumble, Twitter, Twitch, D-Live, and Kick. We are broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting. Tonight we're taking your calls as we talk folklore and hyperstition, recreating All Hallows Eve. And we started with this wild story about the Philip experiment, a 1972 parapsychology experiment in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And they basically invented this entity. Okay, it was a fictional entity named Philip. They gave it a whole backstory, a tragic backstory, a scandal back in 1624 England, and a tragic ending. Okay, they created it. It was full on nonsense. But then they tried to focus that entity into reality and communicate with it through seances. And they say that it took months, but eventually something started communicating with them. What does that look like? I don't know. And is it possible to manifest entities at all, ever? I don't know. This is weird, because I do think it fits into, as I'm describing tonight, All Hallows Eve, that we've sort of manifested the reality of how we celebrate this based on seasons, based on what's in the air, based on the oral tradition, going back thousands of years. And I wonder what it would take to kind of change the concept of this now and in the future. I don't know. Wild and weird. And what do you know about it? 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. Derek in Massachusetts, the Night Stalker. What's up, brother? How you doing tonight? Welcome back. You're on Troubled Minds. Go right ahead.
Yo. going on? Can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear. You sound great.
All right, beautiful. Good. Yeah, wild stuff. I don't even know. This is gonna be one of those ones where just I have too much to say. So just cut me off, please. Whenever. Not a ton of notes, just because it's gonna be free flowing, but just wild stuff.
It's weird, right? Have you first real quick, let me ask you the question. Just as you don't have to dig into what this is, but have you heard of this Philip experiment? Is this new to you? It was new to me.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
No, but it's going to be in the repertoire from now on, though. It's going to be
exactly.
in the quiver from now on.
Exactly.
It fits in perfectly. I think.
Go ahead.
I think this is like super important, like unbelievably important, and maybe one of like the like. If you look at a Masonic tracing board, kind of like a kind of showing reality, it shows kind of reality reflecting off mirrors, kind of reflecting off like people or whatever. So I wonder if that the real conspiracy is that like nothing is like we give them, they manifest all their power through us. That the conspiracies are manifested because they tell them first, like the chicken or the egg. They inject these things into the zeitgeist first so that they can get their power through us. But then, like the phenomena too, I think this might be the most important thing. Like we touched on it with the with like the attention and the fear draining last week and stuff with the entities. But this like manifestation aspect to the phenomena might be like the importance of the interaction. Like it might be why the phenomena interacts with us in the first place, and like could be construed as like the paradigm of like they're after the soul, the importance of like the human soul. That could be like a Christian like prism to say that they're after the reality rendering ability of the human mind and stuff, so that we're creating everything around us, and not even really in a woo-woo way, but just like again, this is I'm repeating stuff, but like I think last year or 2 years ago, the Nobel Prize winning physicist won with the idea that like reality doesn't exist until it's rendered by us. So like not just entities and stuff, but just everything. And I think this is how kind of time doesn't exist, because it's just a constant now. We're constantly manifesting now, and we experience that through our five senses as like at least now, not like a linear flow of now, it's like moment after moment, but it just constantly we're manifesting reality, and everything else exists in like latent space, or like the white space, or potentialities and stuff. Like this, so it gets kind of twisty with like multiverse type of stuff. Like, but I think this under this paradigm, it allows for kind of everything. But it just wrapped my head with a pretzel with the last 6 months with it, because I think it kind of fits into everything. Maybe cue me up one more time, but just I do know where I'm going to be headed. I'm just ran in my car.
You're
good.
Oh, you're good.
There's a lot to think about.
No, yeah, tons of stuff. Let me introduce this too real quick.
Please.
What is it? The hypersigil. So Grant Morrison, he's got an idea that if you read the write up, your mind will be blown. But Grant Morrison's got a concept that's called the hypersigil. Hypersigil transcends traditional magical sigils, simple symbols charged with intent, by expanding into complex narratives that unfold over time. Morrison's technique involves creating autobiographical fiction that serves as a template for desired changes in reality. The artist essentially crafts a story version of themselves achieving specific goals or undergoing desired transformations, then channels intense focus and belief into this narrative through the creative process. All this is in the write-up. I encourage you to look into it. And this rabbit hole led me to several ideas I had never heard of. We talk about them sort of in the abstract, because I'm not as woo-woo learned as I could be, but it was like one wild idea after another tonight, just starting with this Philip experiment back in 1972 and manifesting basically the paranormal realm entirely. And so what does it look like? I don't know. Go right ahead.
Yeah. I had Grant Morrison in my notes.
Really?
He's a wow. He's an incredible, just a word, Grant Morrison, just to see what I could fit in with him. And Alan Moore. Alan Moore and Grant Morrison are the two famous magician comic writers, and they kind of famously have a beef with each other. They don't really like each other that much. But Grant Morrison is a chaos magician. He's one of the best, maybe the best Batman writer of all time. Hugely influential. But he wrote The Invisibles. This is his like creator-owned comic, and he put himself into the book. And it basically, it looks just like him. It's like him with a shaved head. It's basically a white Morpheus from the Matrix. And the Wachowskis read on the Invisibles in the 90s, and then used that aesthetic of himself, Grant Morrison's own character, to make Morpheus with the leather jacket and the glasses and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, and he describes like he knew this was happening, kind of, and then when he was kind of like messing with himself or giving himself, or he realized it was happening because he was giving himself problems in the story, and the character in the story had like some kind of like boils or pustules that were appearing on his body, and then in real life, Grant Morrison got this like staph infection on his face, and it was like he still has scars for it and stuff, so he got freaked out and he started to like change the story real quick, and then it like changed it to like I'm gonna start getting girls and like having crazy sex and doing all this crazy stuff, and it would immediately happen. So he actively like made that decision about his life, but then he kind of puts these things into everything, and he talks about like he's a big fourth wall breaker as far as when the characters meet somebody, like meet like the god amongst gods. It's like it's him. He's like he wants to talk to Batman, kind of, and it makes me think of Alan Moore because he invented John Constantine, and I think he doesn't really like Grant Morrison that much because like the way Constantine looks is kind of like a blonde version of Grant Morrison, as opposed to Alan Moore, who's kind of just looks more like Santa. It's kind of he's like much, and Grant Morrison's much cooler. I think Alan Moore wants to be Constantine, and Grant Morrison is closer to Constantine than Alan Moore is, kind of.
Oh, I see. Easy. We're all getting close to Santa a little bit. I get a little too gray for my own taste. Easy on us old guys.
They're both badass, and they both look cool, and they're both cool in their own right. But Alan Moore created Constantine, and then he claims to have met Constantine in a pub one day, or he like in this. I'm not going to get into it. There's a bunch of examples of authors like creating characters that they created, or meeting characters that they created. I'm trying to get back to the beginning of my notes here, but you talk about like even if they know it's not real, how do they manifest this Philip thing? And with the placebo effect, which science doesn't really understand how it works. Like they know it works, they don't really know exactly how it's working, but they use it to trial every single drug that goes out into the market and stuff. But with the placebo effect, in these trials, like even if you know that you're taking the placebo, you're just taking a sugar pill, you can still get the benefits as if you were taking the drug and stuff. It's like in Space Jam when they get Michael Jordan's secret stuff, and then they know it's water, but they still kind of want it again. Like they didn't know it was water, and it gave them like superpowers. So they have amazing basketball skills. But then after it ran out and they were kind of losing again, even if they knew, even though they realized it was fake, they still kind of wanted that bump. You know, it's kind of the fake it till you manifest it angle. And when James was talking about the what came first part, like the example I give with this kind of is with Bigfoot, especially like trying to mix the peas and the carrots and everything, is that there could have been an initial fear of the other in the woods, a fear of a wild man in the woods, whether that's like feral humans or just another tribe in the woods who are just different than you, or way back like an ancestral fear in us of like when there's multiple hominid species, like the Cro-Magnon fearing the Neanderthals and vice versa and stuff, that there's something else out there that's kind of human, not really, maybe hairier, more rugged, just a wild man archetype, an actual thing out there. But then over time, story about that, and especially with like other tribes, rivaling tribes, it would build them up. Oh, they're bloodthirsty, they're cannibals, or they're 10 feet tall and they're covered in hair, all kind of stuff. The myths will build up, and then through this manifestation mechanism, then a cryptid appears, you know. And then I think probably the third thing that is kind of a formless thought form that's like an unseen nothingness that can wear the belief of the Bigfoot as like the wolf in Little Red Riding Hood wearing Little Red Riding Hood's grandmother's clothes to trick her. So there's like the actual thing, the physical thing, then the idea of the thing manifests something new, and then trickster faceless thing can wear the belief too. So there's kind of all of the above. I mean, I'm really rambling, but what do you think about that?
No, you're good. Yeah, the hyper, what was it? The hyper sigil, was I saying there?
Hyper sigil.
Yeah. Like all this stuff, it turns into, which is basically what I've always been talking about as part of this larger narrative, is narrative magic itself. It's a sort of creating not just the idea of story
shaping reality.
Yes, exactly, and not even saying that like You go back to the initial Troubled Mind stuff. We were sort of a basic Witch 101 conspiracy show, but then it starts to evolve into all these other things with all these amazing people and all these ideas. And I do wonder, as I've said in the past, that is it possible that these ideas are influencing the future now? Like we've kind of got to a point where we're kind of culminating the maybe, it's not the maybe juice anymore, it's the maybe stew, and we're all kind of stewing together in the maybe stew and kind of putting that out there into people's minds. And that, whether they've heard it or not yet, it's that morphic resonance aspect of it. And what does this lead to in the future? I don't know, but it does make me feel like, we said this in the past, before you create videos on YouTube, or before you start creating anything, music or art or anything, you kind of feel like a bystander until you start creating things. And then there's that narrative magic that comes with it. And suddenly the narrative starts morphing and changing, and then people engage, and then collectively, suddenly the world isn't like it was anymore. I don't know. It's incredibly weird. And when you scale that, what does that look like? It gets bizarre as hell to me. And that's why I think these conversations are so important, because there's going to be things I miss. There's going to be things you miss. There's going to be things we all miss. But if we all talk to each other, who knows what comes next? And I love that narrative magic. I'm gonna a couple bullets, like I said, in the quiver at this point, adding to what comes next, because I've learned a bunch of stuff tonight, not just from you guys, but from this just the seed idea of manifesting reality that started with that Philip thing. But go ahead. What else you got?
Yeah, it might be the most important thing, and just it's one of those ideas where, like, I feel like we've kind of been doing it. Like it's similar to the Rivers or Portals idea. I shout out Rivers. Like it kind of like came to me, and I didn't really have the evidence to support it. And then over the course of like the following year, then like it just kind of falling in my lap, and then I was able to form like the term paper equivalent of like how to present the argument and stuff. Kind of the same way we've been like kind of like dancing around this and like coming up with like trying to find ways to say it. And the Phillips thing is really just like put a bow on it, and it's one of those ideas where like once it kind of hits, then you can go back into the paranormal weird files, the maybe juice files, go back into the stew and like reassess everything, all the 101 files to then get a whole new interpretation of it. And that's where like the Bigfoot stuff comes in, or everything, or like to tie it into tonight's show, like kind of what we're talking about with the fear time of the season last week and stuff. The idea that like the fear of an actual wild man manifest, like, and then so a real wild man, and the fear of it manifesting something new could be the fear of the dark. And now we're in a dark season, and then so the fear of that, it's the unseen. It's like in the dark is the unseen, so it gets associated with the unseen, and which brings in the dead and the paranormal and all kind of stuff. So then through all these different traditions, the connective tissue is kind of to see the unseen, whether it be your ancestors or the spirit world or paranormal stuff or like spooky, scary stuff, more in a modern day thing. But it's kind of always to like see the unseen, like acknowledge, pay attention to these things. So I can kind of everything. And with Santa, or first, speaking of like zeitgeist, there's a couple of videos that popped up on my like Facebook Reels or whatever. Like the AI told us how to escape the Matrix, part 1 and stuff. I think it's kind of like semi-going by. I've seen like a few different versions of it, like the AI teaching us how to escape the Matrix. And I just like part blah 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 blah. And I kind of skimmed through it, and it's kind of just given the quantum physics, the collapse in the wave function, all that kind of spiel. But the crux being that like, first, to understand reality, it's that like we are rendering reality, and the idea that like they use the word render, which I feel like I say a lot, like we say a lot, to that the human mind is with rendering reality, and there's unseen forces, that there's formless things that need to be given form, need to be rendered, and they do it via us, which could be, and I think that ties into so much stuff. And there's an Santa, like was some video of some like anthropologist, whatever, talking. I saw the other day, and he was talking about the importance of Coca-Cola and what like Coca-Cola did to America and American culture. So it's just like Santa did not exist really before that, and the importance of Christmas necessarily didn't really exist before Coca-Cola kind of did this. But it took kind of an amalgamation of like Odin or like Kris Kringle, Saint Nick, these kind of different figures. And even like in the like Christians before Coca-Cola created and invented Santa, according to this person, the real money holiday was Easter. Like everyone's born, so the birth of the Savior is a cool day. It's his birthday, but it's not the real super important day. Is the day that this character like returned from the dead. Like the resurrection day. Easter is the real everyone pays attention to holiday, but because of Santa, that completely shifted. So, but like, how did that happen? They still took existing archetypes like a Odin or like a Kronos, even like a Father Time, Father Christmas type of thing, mixed with like Saint Nick and these other potentially historical figures, Kris Kringle and stuff, and then created this thing to package their product. So a completely for money enterprise packaged it with the spirit of Christmas and the way it meant. Like I'm born in '89, my entire life. Like I love the idea of the spirit of Christmas. I love the nostalgic quality of Christmas and the time of the year and stuff. Like I pretended to believe in Santa way beyond when I actually believed in him and stuff. Like I just didn't want to give that up and stuff. So the movie Elf, he's powered by belief. All these kind of like the Santa Claus with Tim Allen and stuff. Like he says, seeing isn't believing, believing is seeing and stuff. The idea Santa Claus, the myth is belief. It's completely transmuting. Like the calendar is built around Christmas and in Western culture. But then now, and also it's like based on like the wild hunt and stuff. So leaving the milking cookies out, leaving the offerings out for these fae, these elves, and these jolly old elf. So it was able to ingratiate himself, this Santa figure or whatever it is, into culture, completely mutate and change culture. We don't know where it's headed, but it did something. The Christians would say it's taking like the Christ out of Christmas angle, but it's like 1,000% like changed it to a point where it's not returning. And now the new Santa is Krampus. It's these scary Santa movies and stuff. So now, like, what if the like one that Gen Z and Gen Alpha like the most is creepy Santa, spooky Santa, and then in 100 years it's something different. And like the idea of this wild hunt, I don't know. It's just like kind of a good example of where do these ideas come exactly? Like where do they like? Is that the corporation inventing something whole cloth and then using these ancient archetypes and stuff, and then kind of cyclically being rebirthed again, or is there like something in that mechanism that's injecting those ideas, like Robert was saying, like via dreams or all kind of things, or just that like formless pre-thought thought forms that wants to be thought of, they're trying to get you to think of it. So they come in via dreams, they come in via psychedelic states, they come in just try to find a way to get you to pay attention to it. And then once the unseen has become seen, then it can become manifested, you know. I'm rambling.
You're good. You're spot on here. And I do wonder, right? Because like I said, if you rewind it to thousands of years, it's the same thing. So we got here, we've got these weird, again, you know, I'll call them rituals. We call them together rituals when we talk about these holidays and things. And, you know, we do whatever we do to kind of keep the Mother Nature at bay and all the rest of these things, you know, keep the harvest good and, you know, no Carrington events or, you know, worship Apollo or all the things, right? But it's based on these cycles, these older cycles. But then if one little thing twisted or turned, you get mystery cults, or right? You get political cultism. You get the binary propaganda. You get all kinds of stuff that fits into this. And so you're extrapolating forward. I'm thinking the same thing back, and I know you are too. And so one little twist today can change what 1,000 years from now we're celebrating. And it's odd, because where does that come from? And what is that inflection point in a societal inflection point, and what does it mean, and how do we sort of measure those moments? It's impossible. There's too much data, but nonetheless it exists and is very real. And that's why I think this narrative magic is important to consider and talk about, because it's something we all can do. We can all do this. It's manifesting reality seems like woo-woo magic, but then suddenly recognize things are
I think it's physics. I think it's just how reality works.
Yeah, go ahead. No, I'm rambling on. Go right ahead.
I think like we've talked about it in woo like ways throughout history, but now quantum physics is catching up, and we're just realizing that this is what probably the unseen probably knows is how it works. And this is like everything, this co-creation of reality is kind of what it's all about, and we're realizing it's not so woo-woo. I'm going to try to explain this episode in like 1 minute because I know we're running out of time. I watched it today and it kind of ties in. American Horror Stories, where every episode is a different anthology episode. I watched one of the Bloody Mary today. So spoiler alert real quick and see if this makes sense. But these like girls were they did like Bloody Mary in front of the mirror to try to like, and the idea was you can like get stuff from her. So, but the catch was she would tell you to like murder somebody. So go and like push that girl up the top of the cheerleader pyramid. She's gonna be really hurt, but then you'll become head cheerleader and stuff. But then but if you don't do it, I'm gonna kill you. So then put in a situation where these girls either had to like die, and so they thought, or commit murder. And then spoiler alert, I come to find out she like this Bloody Mary was revealing these like hidden truths to the girls. She wasn't actually murdering them, but she was convincing one of the girls, again, spoiler alert, to murder the other girls. That was part of the arrangement that she made. Like part of the deal is you have to like get the blood of innocence or whatever. So like that's the big crux of the episode is that Bloody Mary never came out of the mirror to kill. It was like the girl did it. And then because she was pushed by this paranormal force in the mirror. But as I'm watching, I'm thinking the only thing the paranormal force in the mirror did was show something to the people that was already inside them, their deepest desires. So is that thing paranormal force in the mirror ever there at all to begin with? Or was it just kind of a interpretation of, or a dark shadow archetype just kind of coming out through this reflection literally in the mirror and then getting us to do things? And story is kind of basic, like how we perceive reality. So we kind of story ties these archetypes coming out of us, and can do that, like, and create monsters of that. Like that could be all from the inside. I don't know. I'm rambling, but like I like the idea that it's everything. So there's stuff coming from inside, trying to be brought out, become real stuff. There's actual real things that then the story gets built up, and new things come. There's unseen things that want to be seen, so they inject these ideas in because they know this happens and stuff, and then everything in between. But when Robert was saying like, how does the zeitgeist, how does these things in the air happen? How do we all pick up on these things all at once? As a thinker mystic, I'm endlessly fascinated by that, and I'm not sure, but just what if different parts of the body didn't know that they were part of the body and thought they were like their own thing? Like their own, like I'm the hand, I'm different than the foot or whatever, or just different muscles in the arm. All didn't know the arm existed, thought they were all separate beings. How do they interpret the brain telling them to move the arm? Like, is that what's happening? Is that some kind of brain telling the collective human to move the arm? And that's what something in the air means, something in the ether means, is because we're picking that up, you know? We're out of time, but I just want to get that in there. So I have a rambling.
No, we're talking about, hold on, before you go, Liz says you aren't rambling. Yeah. It makes sense to me, Derek, so much sense. And real quick, one final thought before you go. There's an article here by Peter M. Ball. Its links will be in the description down below. The headline is this: "We are all unintentional hypersigil machines." Go read that. It'll blow your mind. You're the best, Derek.
Check out Grant Morrison interviews. They're really good. But yeah, great stuff again.
Great call. Yeah, always a pleasure. You're the best. Derek, the Night Stalker, you know him, you love him. Go give him a follow. Link's going to be in the description down below, troubledminds.org/friends. It'll say follow the Night Stalker here, or just search it yourself. Go to YouTube and search The Night Stalker. It is STOCKER, and he does call us from work, so he is as stalking by dark of night as the best grocer in the multiverse. Fire stuff. What do you guys know about it? We're talking folklore and hyperstition, recreating All Hallows Eve, of course, narrative magic, and what does it look like? More coming up. I think we got MJ, more from James, and your calls as well. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, Rockfin, Rumble, Twitter, Twitch, D-Live, and Kick. We are broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting. And, of course, 88.4 FM Auckland, New Zealand on the Underground Media Network. Tonight we're taking your calls as we talk folklore and hyperstition, recreating All Hallows Eve through narrative magic. Again, if this goes back thousands of years and it's the narrative we're living, is it possible to sort of change parameters within said narrative collectively? And not just now, but maybe going to the past, as we've started with this weird Philip experiment, which is incredibly strange, where these, parapsychology folks in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, shout out Canadians out there, actually did this Philip experiment where they created a fictional paranormal entity and then tried to channel said entity, seeing if through their collective belief in the thing, they could actually communicate it, Tulpa style. And if you guys have read read the write-up down below, links in the description. There's some wild ideas in there with tulpas and some other stuff. But it gets to hyper sigils. We're talking hyperstition tonight, and there's a lot of really thick ideas that kind of go into that. But is it real? And how are we dealing with this personally and of course collectively? Hang tight, James. We got to whoever's on the line's been waiting for a very long time. We'll get to you in just a second. Thanks for sitting in. 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. You're on Troubled Minds. What's your first name? Where are you calling from? I think this is MJ. Am I right?
The recording didn't pick up MJ?
No, it didn't. It didn't say. It says there's no screen. It says Haunted Stones is what it says. So, yeah.
That's pretty much it. Haunted. That's my brain. Haunted Stones.
Okay. All right. Well, welcome Haunted Stones to Troubled Minds. What's on your mind tonight? Go right ahead.
Well, the experiment, all of the above. They could create the personality. They could have thought of the personality and maybe one of the entities out there kind of placed it in their brain to do it. The connection's almost infinite. It's infinity to that. You just, it can go several ways with that. I have a story. Way back in high school, we were dealing with Ouija boards, right? And this Christian family had a basement. And, I'd go over and we'd all play together when I was in early teens, mid-teens type of thing. And so one evening we were over there, and they had the basement had a fireplace in it. So we all went down there, and oldest daughter had the Ouija board out. She was playing with it by herself. It was moving on its own. And they had this area where they had this chain link fencing that took part of the basement, and they caged it in so that all the kids would put their, badminton set, tennis, skis, everything was piled in there. Any kind of recreational thing was piled in there. So she's sitting on the couch, and we're all kind of sitting around and watching. I really wasn't paying attention. And my sister said that the entity was a demon, or the devil himself, was telling her to be friends with him, that she had to kill the whole entire family. Of course, nobody bought it. She wasn't buying it. So it kept getting worse and worse, and the energy was building. A little fireplace. All of a sudden, this basketball comes bouncing out from where they kept, they caged in all the toys, came bouncing out. And as it bounced across the room, we all noticed the fireplace was lit. So the possibilities of contacting, that's not a spirit, that's really in another, dimension or realm. But the possibilities of doing that is, obviously you can do it, and it's great.
And this is so this is not channeling, this is spirit board stuff, or is it the same thing?
It's the same thing. You use the spirit board to pull in the spirit or whatever you're talking to. You create a little doorway is what you do. And it's a relatable thing to where they come to the board, you're at the board, but it's you and them, but the board is the middle ground thing to where it's like a door. You can shut the door, open a door.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. So the method can be sort of transient in nature, but you're still doing the same thing to get entities speaking to you or communicating through that door. Yeah, that makes sense. Which would mean we're blurring the lines between maybe the dream realm or astral travel, remote viewing, this type of stuff. It kind of all fits in the same sense, at least. Squint your eyes theoretically. It may not be exactly the same thing, but kind of all sort of barking at that door you're describing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, the possibilities of any of this, it's the psychic ability is when you see a psychic ability, and people say, well, I'm a channeler. Okay, but no matter what you do psychically, doing readings or anything else, you're channeling an energy, you're channeling information, you're channeling something. So to say you're simply a channeler, that just describes in general what psychic ability is about.
Okay, fantastic. Now, channeling these entities, how do we determine what they are? Back to Philip, right? So this is a fictional entity that was created through the group here, kind of doing the thing in this experiment. So Philip became real because they made him real. Was that what's happening here?
It could be. There could be something out there that's just an energy, and I've experienced some of that where it doesn't really have a name. It won't give you a name because it doesn't have a name. It's just a consciousness. Maybe it's been around for a very long time, or it's coming from another, I'm going to say realm or dimension, that it's a consciousness, but it hasn't developed to the point where it has a personality or a name or anything. It's just forming from someplace else. They may have, accidentally got a hold of that, or they took the dark energy and created a personality, and it just sort of pulled about, like you're making a cake, and you put all these ingredients in, and they kept at it till it finally formed into a personality of some sort.
Okay. Which means, though, does that mean you're a creation of something else manifesting you, or me? So how does that scale? Like, what are we then?
Well, we're embodied, and we're created through physical birth. And there's a personality that's in us that goes into the baby or into the fetus to become physical here. So it could be a spirit of sorts that wants to come in and be born in a human form to experience human, you see. And to me, that's pretty much what that is, because when we die, and then we go through this process of grieving, even when we're dead, we're sort of in limbo for a little bit, and then we start feeling around where we're at because you're still hanging on to life or whatever you're hanging on to. Some people don't. Some people just move on. They're gone. I'm done. I'm out of here. And as they do that, they have to strip themselves of their old life, and then you finally go back. What my experience is, you go back into the light, and the light has to sort of reprogram you and cleanse you so you're, pure. There's nothing nothing's been written on a book or your page or anything, and then you're born back into the human body. So it could be anything from anywhere that chooses to do this.
Okay, fair enough. I got a question for you regarding, let's say, creators. So we're talking about, Grant Morrison and this idea of hypersigils and narrative magic. Now, this article by Peter M. Ball says that he says, for Morrison, a hypersigil was an extended work of narrative that served the same purpose. Stories designed to change the self in the world. He created 3 works that were explicitly hypersigils: The Invisibles, Flex Mentalo, and The Filth, all of which were created during around his Doom Patrol run. But he says this: Morrison is bat guano insane, of course, and that's part of his charm as a creator. But it's interesting to watch some of his more out there ideas get teased out by other writers. Now, somebody like that's so far ahead of their time idea-wise, and we're talking about those ideas now and sort of through the creation of Troubled Minds, do you think that there is a culmination point of creativity that becomes something that changes the future in the larger context? You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense as I ramble through that? Meaning the unintentional hypersigil machines is us, and these ideas that kind of come out of us, channeled or otherwise. Is it possible to change the future with a simple basic idea? Back to Margaret Mead a little bit, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You can take something. And I used to train horses for a living, right? Okay. And the horses taught me how to train them. The horses taught me how to ride. People did not teach me how to ride. The horses taught me how to ride. And when you do that, anything you do, you learn a language, you learn high math. It wires your brain a bit and gets you thinking differently, so the ideas could expand past what we're normally doing and put that idea out. Let's say the idea is very much for the future, but you're putting this idea out now for everybody to mull over, and it starts spreading out a little bit. So yeah, your ideas can change directions of all kinds of things. It just depends on how simple and how simple you see it. And sometimes the simplest way is the best way, because you don't have the froth, you don't have all this stuff in your head that's blocking you. You have a very simple, pure idea, and it works.
Yeah, it does. Sometimes the most simple idea does work. We like to complicate things for ourselves. I'm a good example of that, by the way. I'll be like, let's, there's 3 ideas here. Let's combine 5 ideas and see what kind of nonsensical narrative magic we can come up with. I mean, why not, right? So regarding channeling and the rest of this stuff, so these entities are all over the place. Where would you quantify them as residing? And, we've talked about this in the past a little bit as well. If Philip, this fictional entity, doesn't exist, but now exists. Now, where does this dude hang out? Is this purgatory? Is this the astral plane? Is this? Is it just in our minds? Where do these new entities that we've created through the creation process? Where do these new entities reside now?
Well, you're talking about almost an artificial entity, is what you're thinking, in a sense, but it's not, because it needs birth, it needs energy, it needs all kinds of things. They're just out. They're out there floating around. There's no particular place that they, like the little eggs someplace, and they're all hanging out together. Because when you're out there, you're out. Because like I said, like the last time I called in, I had a true out of body, but I was fighting off this negative energy, and it was necessary to be out of my body to do it. So when I was out there, there was nothing to be seen. It was just me in my yard and a raccoon. That was it. And the raccoon saw me. And there was nothing around, but there was something around. So you have to imagine, let's say there's all these consciousness out there, but because they can't communicate with each other directly, because their consciousness started at a different time. So they're all in their own little time frame, and they exist, and it takes a long time for you can actually recognize another consciousness. And I'm not talking, out of body, a dead person, a consciousness that's out there, and it takes time to develop to where you can communicate to another one. I mean, that does happen, because I know dead people, when they die at a certain time, so that is their time frame when they're dead. So if somebody else, somewhere along the line, dies at that exact same moment, they may see them in death. But others they may not see, because they started out differently, and they're on their, they started on the, looks like they started on the trail. They started walking that trail earlier, and then, 5 years later, somebody else starts out on the same trail, but they're not going to catch up to them.
Okay, I follow you. So it's basically, this is complicated. There's a lot happening here. And regarding us and sort of manifesting reality, how does that work? Are we all able to do that, or is it something learned? Or what's your take on that? This idea of not just hyperstition, but hyper sigils, and we're gonna get into something too called I think it's reality funnels. I think is what it's called. It's in the write up. But how do we manifest the old trope, right? The old New Age trope of manifesting reality. How do we do this? Is it something learned? Is it something like, how do we actually, what do we, how does this work? Explain this to me. Because I have my own ideas, but I'm curious of your take on this. How do we actually manifest reality in any capacity?
Well, it's through thought and desire. Okay. It's like, all right, this is how this goes. In high school, I hated high school. I really did. So I just hated it. And the counselor, the next door neighbor had some horses. I was riding horses. I got a horse. And I decided I wanted to learn how to train horses, because I discovered I was halfway decent at it. So what I manifested, and this would happen over the years, my single thought when I told the student counselor, because they, what do you want to do when you leave high school? It's like, I want to be a horse trainer. Told him that. And he had, well, what about that? And I said, well, I'm going to learn how to train horses. And that's exactly what I did. I manifested learning how to train horses. I didn't ask for going to the Olympics, which I actually had an opportunity, this type of thing, or at least work with a team. I didn't do those things. I wanted to learn, and that's exactly what happened. So I manifested through thought and talk, and that was my thought, and my desire was to learn how to train them. So I manifested all that. Now, as I went along, I manifested getting me in a very expensive car, which I had no money, but I got it. And then I manifested getting me a motorcycle. I manifested, and I had nothing to do it with, but I was able to go ahead and get it. Whether you talk to people into it, whatever they want, it doesn't matter. You manifest that. And sometimes by thought alone, your desire is what really gets it. If it's heartfelt desire and it's direct and open to that specific thing, it doesn't have a bunch of garbage piled in around it, then you're going to manifest that in your life.
Okay, I like it. Which basically is just focused intent. And so whatever that is, if you want to get it and you focus enough of it, then you get it. And of course, again, we've talked about this in the past, there are going to be situations where that doesn't play, because you have to have a level of free will within the context of your world, because there are some places where, they mistreat children, and they're dead by the time they're 10 because they overwork them in mines or whatever. Just as an example, like that, you can't manifest your way out of that. There has to be some level of autonomy in the space to kind of play with that. I mean, if it's taken from you entirely, you cannot. I mean, that's very obvious. Or you get again, God forbid, like I've used the example of young children getting cancer or something and being just at 5 years old. Terrible stuff. There are some things that you cannot sort of play with reality in the context of what it means to be human, but clearly, given a little bit of choices and choices to be made, it seems like we can. And how weird and how wild does it get? It really becomes the thing. So I'll get to reality tunnels in a second, but what else you got? What else you got regarding any of this stuff? As usual, I appreciate your wisdom, my man.
Well, you talk about manifestation. Sometimes the manifestation, if it doesn't work out, did you really want it in the first place? Or were you just grabbing at straws, or were you just looking for a way out of your situation? And that's all it really was. 9 times out of 10, things won't manifest that way because you're looking for a weak result to get away with whatever you're in, you'll see. So I would look at that, if there's a fail of manifestation, maybe it was this strong thought for like 5 minutes, but it wasn't a long-term desire.
Yeah, that makes sense. So if you tried to manifest everything you ever wanted, it'd be a complicated world indeed. And so that does make a ton of sense. So which means you boil it down to, what do you really want? What do you really, really want? And yeah, I guess that's sort of negotiating with ourselves for whatever reality can present to us. Yeah, wild stuff. Fire as always, man. Yeah. What else you got? If you got anything, if not, I got some stuff to introduce, like reality tunnels. But what else you got? All yours if you got it.
Well, I don't know what else, but I mean, people talk about manifestation, and took these spiritualists. Oh, you can manifest it, and it's like, again, if the intent you want it, it's not going to happen. You really have to be devoted to it to get that part of it. I don't know what your tunnels are about. But, when you go to manifest stuff, it's like your life happens. And my life has been just weird because the way it's all, I sort of follow things when they come up. It's like the next thing smack in your face. Okay, I'll go do that. Thank you, fine. I'll go do it. And I would go do it. And that's how my life's been. It was never a thing of manifesting and having a regular job and you go there every day. It's like the wind blew. That's where I went. That's my entire life's been that way.
Yeah, it seems like sometimes that the blowing of the wind is not accidental too. I mean, clearly there's some autonomy and free will there, but it kind of feels like sometimes we're led to a particular place, whether we want it or not. Yeah, and here we are. Yeah. Which, by the way, my path and your path have led us to talking to each other over the internet about amazing ideas. So I'm grateful for that. Glad to have you here. Thanks again for your wisdom as always, and thanks for being part of the show. And a good friend for a long time. You're the best, brother.
Oh, thank you.
Have a great night. Appreciate the call. That's MJ in Virginia.
You too, brother.
Thank you. You know him, you love him. A good friend for a long time, and it's as usual, it's complicated, right? That's why we talk to so many people. Again, this is open lines. We're not. I'm not trying to do anything other than talk weird stuff, as you can tell. But also, clearly, if you're like, nah, that's fine. Nah, plays, as I always say, it's fine. Like you be the arbiter of your own truth. I'm not that, barely for myself. Anything to add, James, before I introduce this idea of the reality tunnels here? Because I think it's incredibly important to the concept tonight that we kind of need to get to. But if you got anything, go ahead. James Salcedo, welcome back if you're there.
Yeah, great calls from MJ and everyone. In case I missed anyone, so many great people. I know I do that sometimes, probably. But a few things I wanted to mention. A couple of things from Derek's call. I do agree with him about the that it's everything. All these things we talk about are probably part of what is going on. In other words, yes, it is us, certain people creating whatever is out there, but also, yes, it is other beings and or energies and or forces that also interact with us. The other thing I was thinking about too is with any kind of apparitions that are just like one color, like a shadow figure, or figures that are just all white or even transparent and don't really have any features. I wonder if that is because of that whole process of manifesting, whether it's something that over time people have not focused on for a long time. And so going back to the chat there, Relvin and I were talking a little while ago, they start to fade away, whatever these are, they start to fade away and lose features. Or if they are just being, it's more of a beginning. They've just somehow come into being, and that's why they are shapes in some cases, but not necessarily features that we can focus on and see easily. That was the other thing. The last thing, I think, I can't remember if we talked about this before, but regarding this time of year, even just holidays and in general, and these figures that we focus on, or these ideas, there have been over time reports of people seeing figures related to holidays like Santa Claus or even like an Easter Bunny. Believe it or not, sounds crazy in a way, but they're out there, rare reports of people seeing these creatures that seem to come right out of the minds of people, of these figures that they associate with holidays. And I think the other issue with that, and then with Halloween, is even if, let's say, way back when, that time of year was not a time when the veil, or whatever that is, to the other side was thin or thinning, even if that wasn't the case before, I wonder if, because of the idea getting more and more popular over time, especially now, because of course fear and other negative things sell, if that maybe is possible, that it does happen now. And because so many reports of things do happen, seem to happen more in some cases around this time of year. So is that because of that and because of us focusing on that in and of itself, or is there, again, chicken or the egg? Was there something and we're just now becoming more aware of it, and due to the internet and all those things over time?
Yeah, an idea sharing together. Exactly right. Yeah, fire stuff. Real quick on that. So the reality tunnels, I'll introduce us. We'll get back to this in a second. We got Jen on the line, and your calls as well if you guys want to pop in here. So Robert Anton Wilson's concept of reality tunnels fundamentally challenges our understanding of objective reality. It links in the description. It's in the write-up. Through his extensive research and personal experiments with consciousness, Wilson proposed that each person inhabits a unique reality tunnel, a set of beliefs, experiences, and cognitive filters that literally shape what they perceive as real. And I started with that a little bit tonight in that context because, like I said, somebody who's a welder, God bless you. That's grueling and difficult work and a very skilled labor. Go get it, right? But that your reality itself, that reality tunnel, is going to be very different from somebody who might be, for instance, a talk show host, or a holy person, or whatever, like you name it, somebody that works for the government doing, well, government things. Don't get me started on that. But you get the idea, right? It's bizarre that reality tunnels are a thing individually and personally, and they're all facing a particular direction. Okay. So how do we share those reality tunnels? And to me, the best idea I got is to talk about these things together, to share our realities with each other and sort of open the tunnel itself collectively. I don't know. What do you guys know about it? Be right back. More Troubled Minds coming up. We got Jen in Missouri, average discussion, more from James and your calls as well. Don't go anywhere. More Troubled Minds on the way. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, Rockfin, Rumble, Twitter, Twitch, D-Live, and Kick. We are broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting and 88.4 FM Auckland, New Zealand. Shout out to our friends in New Zealand. Tonight we're talking, all manner of things. We started with Folklore and Hyperstition, recreating All Hallows Eve. We went to hypersigils, and now we're into reality tunnels. Now, you guys have all heard this, right? Anybody work in the corporate world, at least, circa 2005 or something, back to my corporate life, which I just couldn't stand because everybody was a liar and a thief, mostly. But I couldn't stand it. But they talked about the siloed aspect of business and how, everybody's got their own agendas and their own, responsibilities. And so you kind of have blind spots with the team you're working with, which you shouldn't. And so it was, the idea of the silo was like some newfangled business thing where you're like, but basically it's deeper than that. It's heavier than that. It's way more wild because it's a reality tunnel. The reality tunnel itself is exactly the point of each of our lived experiences, not just where we were, where we are, and where we're heading, but how those intersect with each other. Now think about it in a 6D sense or whatever that looks like, is that we do intersect in some places, and we do agree in some places, and some of our travels are heading in particular directions together or not. And so it's weird, right? It's a weird thing. Reality tunnel specifically is saying we're all individuals, and it's quite a bit more strange than we ever dreamed because, well, this is Troubled Minds after all. But we'll get back to this, but I'd rather hear you guys, as I always say, than me ramble on. 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. We'll put you on the show. Sorry for making you wait. Jen in Missouri, the Arcane Observer, you're on Troubled Minds. How are you? And go right ahead.
Mike, how are you doing?
Pretty good. No problems here. I think everything's fine. The show's going swimmingly. I think it's some great ideas, and we've had some great calls. So welcome to the thing. What do you got for us tonight?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think everyone does. They have their... The thing is that everybody does have their true intentional path. That's their course of time, and it's obvious. I mean, we can't tell what purpose it's serving, but it's clear that everyone is interacting perfectly. And even though it doesn't look that way, and we make choices along the way to define how it turns out, but it comes out exactly how it has to. I mean, everyone does make decisions of how they will interact with their life and what they're going to do, and then the outcome of it and how other people are going to interact with that, given the circumstances, and that it's somehow there's this design in place that puts it all as it should be. And even though it seems like it shouldn't be, it does turn out to be as it should be. It's this very strange thing, even when it's absolutely inappropriate and horrific. So I've seen that because it calls to pass that that it calls forth the people who should do. It's a strange thing. I don't know, but it's odd the way that works. But we're talking about Philip.
Yeah.
So, I mean, besides all this philosophical talk.
You know this one, right? This is not new to you. This is new to me. You're from, okay, perfect. Let's hear Jen's take on Philip. I want to hear this. Go ahead.
Okay, so with Philip, these people that did this experiment, they were chosen to do it. It takes a certain prerequisite. So this wasn't just people pulled off and yanked off the street. These were individuals who had a mindset that they were interested in the project. So that's it. And they were not just, these were candidates out of a pool of candidates. So you're picking people that are interested in the project, but beyond that, they must show a certain superior interest in the project they know what it has to do with. So it's this strange thing that goes beyond it. It's not a blind test, as if they don't know what they're getting into. In all of these projects, they're aware of what the project consists of. They're not given the details of what will be involved, but they have a propensity to maybe have an imagination or perhaps an open mind to it. And this is really interesting because many other different types of activities like this, they typically choose either very young people, and this is outside of government programs or any type of collegiate programs. I mean, in the occult, young people are chosen, or people who have certain, even certain mental deficiencies in ways. It just depends. It has, I think that I've heard all kinds of things that have to do with alternate mindsets, and that they do affect the ability to do this. This can be done by anyone, but it can't be done if the mind has decided that it's not a possibility. So that's the first step. The mind has to think, take the person, the intelligence of a person, and they have to conceive that it's a possibility that this is something even reasonable to deal with to begin with. So a skeptic is a healthy notion, but it's not it's something that should be like a mole, so to speak, like someone who is observing the effect of this, and they maybe see it. Everyone's going to be skeptical in a way because they don't believe it can happen. And I think that, I mean, I kind of want to go into the fact that this, okay, so I'm just going to be quick with it. What I think happened with Philip, the way that Philip was developed, is that people, I have a particular belief system, so this is not fact. My particular belief system is that people are born with a certain way to handle existing. And it's their natural ego, psyche, subconscious. But as they're going through existence, there are different aspects of that personality that can either, and it supplements the base personality, and it's not a present personality all the time. And I think that in some way, there's a type of projecting. It is so woo, Mike, that I think, so if you were talking about, for example, witchcraft, let's just skip ahead. If anyone right now
woo is fine,
were to
Jen.
decide that this is worth,
you're in the right place.
If anyone was deciding that this is a worthwhile thing to figure out if it's true or not, I would challenge anyone to go to the grocery store and pick up a ribeye steak, pay the full price, and go buy it. Go out on a particular date and time, dig a hole 4 feet deep, and put it in the ground. Cover it with dirt. You want to include other things. And if you were already set on these things, anything significant to you whatsoever that you thought was important, you would bury it with that ribeye steak. And then you would come back after about 3 days, and you'd dig down 3 feet deep, and you'd bury some more. And if you took the time to fiddle around with such a thing, that you were focusing so much intent that you even bothered to do so, and you continued to do this, and as it decomposed and was eaten by the worms, and as the idea that you were feeding something like a goldfish, that eventually, because of the psychological strangeness of what you're doing to your own psyche, by convincing it that you're feeding something that doesn't actually exist, but that you are pretending does, it begins, your mind supplements, and it makes something there that was not there. And after a time of such insistence that something does exist, so much so that you are feeding it, it's almost like Pet Cemetery, and something does begin to psychologically manifest. And strangely enough, the psyche begins to respond to it, and then it does somehow reach in to the recesses of some power outside of what, because it's not a normal, natural thing to do. It is completely unnatural. That's why it's a type of black magic. It is an out of natural course of interaction with the natural world by trying to manifest something that is not there. And then it becomes there, but it's a bastardization of something that would naturally be there. And it typically picks up on anything around it. It becomes vampiric, and it is true. And we have much in history and culture to describe such things. And I think Philip was, in a way, a very light, as in sour cream light version of what it really can be. And that's what I think Philip was all about. But people are born naturally in my, this is just my own personal belief, but that people do have a following spirit ancestrally, because you come from if you're alive today, you're a descendant from however long, of hundreds of thousands of years, descendants by blood, of continuous blood, through in the same blood, continuously from the source of what you come from. And along that way, in you is all of that from before you. And in the past, they called it ancestral worship, where you would do what I'm kind of describing with someone who had lived before, and you would keep them alive through such a way as what I'm describing, a sort of feeding and a consideration on a regular, continual cycle, so that they continue to live in a way that you could also still communicate with them, because that is the basis of the concept that if the world is dualistic and not monotheistic in a way that you're thinking of it, that there are evil influences. If you walk out into the world and see that there are people opposed to your ideal life, whatever that may be, and that may not be congruent with what's ideal for someone else, so selfishness is immediately remediated. I mean, it's checked. If there, to create a completely selfish life is such a dark way that you have to do what I'm describing and go beyond that to where you're so that it's illegal, essentially. But people do these things. It's a type of workings. But the classic way of going through life and trying to be in congruence with what your purpose is, you're born with an ancestral sort of intelligence that you can either respond to or not respond to. And not every one of the ones that you may hear is truly in the best interest for the future of your generation. So I think but everybody is intelligent unto themselves. But that's the ugly world we're looking at, is that some people are not, and they do horrific things. And they respond to very selfish things, or they're completely empty of any desire for anything except for the most basest things. And there are other entities around you that are embodied. There are people that will oppose that, and they will prevent you from doing so. Well, on the invisible plane, that also is the case. And so if you're working on the invisible plane, you will also be trying to respond when you have thoughts, when you have ideas about, should I do this? Should I do that? You're interacting with that realm that is interacting also with the realm of others that are existing in the physical plane, and preventing or dissuading or allowing the either wonderful ways that things should go and they should continue, that life should continue as it should, or that we should take a diversion here and something horrific should happen and someone should be sacrificed to that. There are these terrible ways of what humanity is, because I think that when they left being just a beast, and which is in our folk tales and our stories, that we are not just bears or wolves. Obviously, there's something else going on. So there's something unique about the human creature. But with Philip, it was a low-level manifestation of a fed God. And this is something that has been done. It's interesting that they did this experiment, and they can see the possibility of what could happen. This has been done at other universities. I don't have it in front of me but I've read about it. I know this is not the only thing they have done. They've done it at many of the universities here in the United States. But trying to figure out, and it's something that it's not, I think it's something to do with, you have to, if a person, anyone actually, maybe not a true skeptic, but even if they are doing it because they are going against the grain of their good sense, and they go out and they dig a 5-foot hole, and then they say, present to me something to place into that hole. It's a type of black magic in a way, but then things that will show up in front of them. Maybe it will be this or that or whatever. And this is classic witchcraft. And they put it into that hole. And then they dig down so many feet, and they will put something else to feed that beneath it. And then they continue to do that. And they continue to feed it. I mean, this is the classic fifth fast. And then that thing eventually becomes intelligent enough that it can respond through other mediums. And they can actually speak with it. And then it's a matter of telling that thing what you want it to do on your behalf, completely against the grain of all the other living intelligences. But because most people have to have a formal agreement or disagreement, but this is talking about going beyond that agreement, and that you are insisting upon a type of slave. And this is something that is in some of the darkest depths of our lore. And it's something that's been believed to be true. And those who try to do so, for example, the necromancer, the idea of a necromancer. Well, most people don't go out and sew the skins of 10 dead men together and then wear it to speak to the dead. But people, that is in the museums of the occult, that people before you have done just that, and how insane they are. Now, the question of, did it work? I think, in a way, it has no choice but to work in a way to move evil influences. I mean, I know it sounds beyond common sense, but this is what does happen.
Yeah, just real quick on that. It feels like, as you just described, it's amplifying insanity, amplifying evil. And so, the more you do that,
an extreme.
Yeah, exactly. The more you do that, it scales, and the more horrific things happen, the more horrific you become, and then it becomes this reciprocal thing, which of course you're talking about witchcraft and the inversion of what real magic should be. So the same thing applies in the good way too, right? Can you manifest in the best of ways and do ritual magic, vice versa? Clearly that makes some sense because it is. Go ahead.
Well, there's a natural order. Everyone, if you're talking about witchcraft, the idea is that everyone comes in with their flesh and their blood that was given to them by their ancestors that have lived and died before them. And there is an echo but there's no difference of who they were. But if a person is trying to, they have a unique intelligence to themselves, but they are the manifestation of all of that before them. And so, and I think that there's something to do with having if you open yourself up to the reflection, I don't like the idea of opening yourself up, but the concept that you understand that you are the manifestation of so many generations before you. And then it's a strange thing because you can only speak for yourself. It's a really important thing to notice that you can only speak for yourself because people are interpreting things in whatever way they interpret it. So you could be saying exactly what I'm saying right now to a perfectly reasonable person, and they would think to themselves, yes, I will do what's strong and right. And then other people might hear that, and they may think, yes, I will do what's strong and right, and I will go do this horrific thing. So I think that but that also is kind of a very strange way that it's beyond humanity. Like it's something, because the spirit is not human. Like what manifests us and what we think of what we are just made up of the ideals of what we wish we were. And as we're trying so hard to strive to being, if we start to ever let that slip, now this might be my own, it is, of course, all of it, my own, dilemmas that I think if we should let ourselves slip at all, we no longer are striving towards our hope, our whatever intention what we were supposed to do with the time that we have with us, and how it is limited. So, and then meant for another generation to come in, and they will be taking from us, it will be carried from, the memory will be in our blood, and it will be in the future blood. And all of it will manifest as to what they will be and what they will do. And there's a rare spirit that can go against bad blood. And still, and there's been many anti-hero stories like that. But back to Philip. Philip, I do think, how do you manifest a Philip? You manifest it by ridiculous pretending at first, but then with the continual attention to an invisible force, with the intentional attention to something that doesn't seem to exist. Eventually, if you're keeping to pretending it does, and then if you go to such extremes as to, begin talking to something that is not there, and then you get a response back, that's how it works. But no one does that. So you're asking yourself to go out of, when you talk to an empty room, you're asking your psyche to go out of the normal limits. And then when you do that, you're opening a type of space where something might answer you. And then if you hear that, you're inviting yourself a little further into, do I believe that I heard something or not? And it goes on until things start to move around and things begin to happen. And people go insane. And it's a fact in many of these circles that is what happens. So it's witchcraft is not in tune with, I'm not, witchcraft as in, there is no good term. People say witchcraft, people say Satanism, people say this, they say that, spiritualism, New Age movement, yada, yada, yada. None of that describes what we're talking about, because this is something that has been going on forever. But it is not defined easily in any of those terms, not whatsoever. It's some type of strange, super childhood power of manifesting an invisible friend that eventually begins to act out on the actual physical world on behalf of its owner.
Yeah, become the the reciprocality of intent and kind of a growing malevolence or whatever. So you defined it well. So you were kind of saying that people call it different things, but you called it the inversion of the natural order. And so that makes a ton of sense to me. Yeah. That seems exactly what we're dealing with here. It's getting late. We got to cut. We got a call behind you too, but fire stuff is always.
Have a great night, Mike.
You as
Thank
well.
You so much.
Appreciate the call.
Have a good evening.
You as well.
Thank you.
You're the best. Jen in Missouri, the Arcane Observer. You love her. Give her a follow. Link's going to be in the description when it gets back up there because the website is broken a little bit. Troubledminds.org/friends. It says follow Jen here, the Arcane Observer. Search it yourself. Go to YouTube. And just type in the Arcane Observer. I think last I checked months ago, I think she's the only one on the interwebs currently. So please go give her a follow. Fire stuff. Talking reality tunnels and all manner of things tonight. If you're into these ideas, by the way, read the write-up because the write-up tonight is incredible fire. It's one of those things where I was like, damn, it's like one rabbit hole after another with this idea. And it taught me like 5 or 6 new concepts I had never considered, including, of course, the reality tunnel, which is a basic, right, sort of when you think about it, it's a basic concept, but it gets weird when you, again, as usual, layer the ideas and kind of extrapolate them and scale them. You're like, ooh, reality tunnels get incredibly strange, which is what Jen was talking about a little bit as well. The inversion of the natural world, I think, is something we should probably reject. And I would also posit that it seems like that's part of what the modern political game is, right? They're trying to get us to sort of invert that idea and make us hate each other through all the rest. James, real quick, if you got anything, and then we'll go to average discussion. Thanks for being patient, my man.
No, just great call from Jen and great calls from everyone. And looking forward to the rest of the show.
You are the best. Thank you very much. 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. Put you on the show just like this. What's up? Average discussion. I like to say not so average discussion because you're a smart guy. Welcome back to the thing. I've been listening to your podcast. It's really good. Welcome. What's on your mind tonight? Go right ahead.
Well, first things first, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
All right, cool. I got new headphones, man, so I didn't know how they worked. But if it's all right with you, I'm going to go in reverse order a little bit here because Jen made some points that I thought were really, really interesting. He talked about the ancestral part of everything a lot, right? And one of the things that I was thinking about when she mentioned that is how ironic it is that the ancestral worship was kind of taken away from the public with the more modern day religious ideology, and it's like it's deemed to be a pagan in a sense thought process ideology, but yet it's perfectly fine to do that for saints and prophets and things related to God, but as long as it's not your own family. And that's where my head went when she was talking about that. I found that extremely ironic. I don't know, maybe that's just me, but in terms of your reality tunnels, though, I thought that really made a lot of sense too, because it's like I don't know, it makes sense to me in regards to the thought process that a lot of people have, right? It's like you work in the same companies, or you see people in society, and you're like, dang, man, like, oh, damn, not me, and I think that's probably for that tunnel thing, you know what I mean? Like you're on a different path, and like you kind of led towards like, how do we intermingle those? How do we make those kind of intersect? So I don't know. I thought that was a very important thing. I'm gonna have to look more into it.
Yeah. So
I guess
just real quick, I'm not sure what's happening. Are you backing away from the mic? It's getting a little bit muffled. Are you on Bluetooth? Is that what's going on?
Yeah. Let me turn it off. I got you. Hang on.
Okay. I appreciate that. Yeah, it was good. It was good. Then it got a little. Yeah, I can hear you now. It was a little bit muffly, so we couldn't exactly hear the last couple things you said there. But yeah, not a ton. But it started to get a little wonky. But yeah, great stuff. You sound fantastic.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay. So regarding any of this, the reality tunnels to me was one of those things that kind of clicked. I was like, dude, like this is exactly it. We're all living in our own silo. Back to that corporate term, but also the reality tunnel scales. It's not some stupid corporate nonsense of people with different agendas. The reality tunnel is everything we do from the time we're born to the time we end. And there's a lot happening, and it's directional, right? We're kind of stuck in that directional space unless we change it or grow it. So a reality tunnel in my mind can be, let's say 3 or 4 inches thick. right? Think of it that way. But also, if your reality tunnel of what you believe or can conceive of idea-wise can grow to be 12 feet diameter, you start to see like possibilities become endless. And I think this is what we're dealing with, not just with individuals, but with society itself, is that the reality tunnel of society has kind of shrunk to, as I always say, the binary aspect of politics, to people arguing about nonsensical things because they tell us those are the things we should argue about. It's wild. But if you funnel that out and say, well, the reality tunnel of actual society should be massive, then, well, we are in a good space. And I think this is probably the eternal battle of good and evil that we're always talking about. It's that control of the societal reality tunnel. I should write a book on this because it's an incredible idea. But yeah, what's your take? Go right ahead.
No, I mean, I think that's spot on, right? I mean, because it's kind of like, if you think about like a neighborhood, right? Like you live in such a close proximity to everybody, but everybody has their own life. And very rarely do you even have people in your own neighborhood that you even have similarities with. But as that starts to widen, like you're saying, you maybe you live there longer or whatever, you start to see things, more commonalities, and then that tunnel becomes larger because now there's more people, right? So I think it's kind of like that. I think with the good and evil thing, kind of like you were saying, people just tend to think that that's just, murder, death, and things like that. But that's not necessarily the basis of it. I think there's a lot of things that fall into good and evil. But in terms of what, your show is about with the Philip experiment thing, the first thing that popped in my head when I was kind of listening to what everybody else was saying and kind of doing some rough research on it, it sounds like a communication problem. And what I mean by that is, you've probably experienced a fair amount of this with all the stuff, all the platforms that you're on and trying to get things to communicate. Maybe you got on one server, you got, the video and audio working perfectly, but then on the other one, there's always something, right? And I'd venture to say that most of the time it's a communication problem. Would that be fair? Yeah, well, a technology problem, but yeah, like a communication problem of having the right parameters dialed in. But yeah, absolutely. Okay. So, and that's what I was thinking about when I thought about this, because it's like, all right, so they go out there, they create what they know is a false situation, right? And they present it out there, and they take it from our platform and they present it over to another one. But the way it gets deciphered on that platform isn't exactly how it was sent over. Much like AI images, right? If you're very vague, you get images that have nothing to do with what you were looking for. So the more descriptive you are, the better chance you get, right? I'm thinking it's something like that, right? Like, so they presented it out there. It wasn't communicated, like the telephone game, and it became something different than what they were expecting. And so when it started to manifest in what they saw, it wasn't exactly what they thought. So perhaps they thought that it was an imposter or whatever the case was. But I'd venture to say it's probably based down to a communication problem. That was the prominent theme in my head when I thought about it, because that's how I feel about a lot of this stuff. I don't think that it's become such a popular topic in itself, right? That I think that there's a ton of people that are doing things, and we all think that we have the basis of it, and we all, people go back and they refer to things that 15 other people have referred to and all, but we don't really truly know. And I feel like that's because we don't know the true language in order to do it, if that makes sense. Yeah, no, it's something comes to mind. I thought it, and then over on Rumble, Gordo typed it, failure to communicate. You guys ever saw that Cool Hand Luke movie, right? You remember that? The guys as old as me or ish old will remember Cool Hand Luke and that warden that said, what we have here is a failure to communicate. And if you do that, by the way, and extrapolate that, scale it like what we've been talking about tonight, it is the basis of all wars. It is the basis of all hate. It is the basis of every terrible thing humans have ever conceived of, is that lack of communication. I think you're spot on with that. And it's what makes us horrible is we break down those reality tunnels individually or collectively in a societal sub-routine of the larger context. And then we're so inflexible that, World War whatever comes. And
Think about just the most horrific thing ever. This is what we're dealing with. It's well said. All that you were spot on, and glad to have you back. What else you got? Go ahead.
I mean, I wouldn't say that it's a failure to communicate. I think about it like this, right? If we created a program on your laptop right now, right, and you tried to inject that program into a computer that's 30 years old, you might get certain frameworks of it, but you're not going to get what you created on this side of it. And that's what and vice versa, right? If you took one from an older computer and tried to apply it on a modern day, software and all that stuff, you're not going to get the same result that you initially had. Or in the case of going from older to newer, you might get something that you never even thought that you were trying to create. And that's what I think it kind of is. It's the communication between those where it's like we don't fully understand the system parameters, I guess is the best way to kind of put it.
Yeah, well, meaning that it could be, we're told the possibilities now are endless. It could be a simulation theory. It could be a holographic universe. And of course, these are all conceptual thinking. But also, if you rewind a couple thousand years, it's very much more limited because they didn't have computers and couldn't kind of conceive of those things directly. Indirectly, philosophically, yes, but that becomes the problem is what actual reality are we living in? And that would sort of be able to help us as individuals and as a society define what comes next. And I don't know, man. And I think the breakdown of that in the larger context might be problematic. Of course, not to the individual, to the free thinker, to the artist, to the dreamer, but problematic, of course, to the individuals that would like to control everything. And as we've talked about in the past, it's sort of censorship of ideas is just against humanity, and it's horrific. And there's still people who think this is the way. They're like, because they're in power. These bastards are in power. We don't have to get into that, but I think there's a lot.
I mean, if you've listened to my show, that's my cup of tea. I'll argue that kind of stuff all day.
100%. And I think mostly we agree on that, though. So it's not even a concept that we're at odds here, but it is one of those situations where we are at odds with the power structures, as I always say, the control mechanisms of society. And that's why it feels so disjointed, because it's scaling with the internet and with us being able to talk to each other. In the old days, you just turn on the boob tube and, turn on the radio and listen to whatever they were telling you, and then kind of talk to each other around the water cooler. But even that was limited. Now, unlimited is this. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. My bad on that. Sorry.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
No, plot twist. I think the plot twist is I think that they're dependent on us to figure that out for them, right? Because it's like, okay, they come out, they control all these mechanisms and flow of information, right? But it's still on us to buy into it, right? So in a lot of ways, I feel like they're just kind of sitting back, seeing what the heck we're going to do, and I think that's why. Completely off topic a little bit, right? I think that's why like the whole UFO conversation in our political system started taking hold, because it was starting to take hold out in the regular everyday life, right? And so it's like they're in control, but they're also dependent on what we're willing to accept as their control. So, I really think people need to pay more attention to that and realize how powerful we really can be. But like you said, that's a whole nother subject. So.
Which we'll get to at some point, because us, wide-ranging, non-linear, open-ended. Let's take these conversations wherever they go, which is fantastic. We can talk about free speech in 1 minute and talk about entities from like the archons from somewhere else in another moment, which is exactly the point of this. It's limiting ideas is limiting not prospects, limiting potential. Limiting ideas is limiting potential, and that's that. But yeah, fire stuff. What else you got, my man? Go ahead.
I mean, I don't really have a whole lot more, man. I mean, my biggest thing was the biggest takeaway I took from it is everything to me. It sounded like I said, it sounded like it was a communication problem, like not being able to communicate properly or in the right code with the other side, and the results that you get, end up being a shell of what you actually intended, right? And that doesn't necessarily mean a negative thing, but probably more times than not, it really probably is a negative thing, right? So, it's definitely I don't dabble in that lifestyle because, one, I don't feel like I know enough about it, and I'd just be out in my yard drawing circles, looking like a weirdo in the middle of the night. But
no witchcraft for you. Fair enough.
And two, because I don't feel like I know
the code in essence, right? Like I don't know the context properly to achieve what it is that I'm looking for, but I do believe that what you manifest can happen, but I believe that it has to manifest to you taking physical action of some kind. Like you can think it all you want, but if that doesn't translate to you making physical changes in your world, it's not going to matter. I've had a lot of friends who were addicted to drugs and stuff like that, and I told them, I was like, listen, you really want to get away from that, then you have to change your entire environment. You can't be half in, half out. And if you don't do that, you're never going to succeed. Right. And I feel that way strongly about that. And it's the same thing with the manifestation stuff. So, it's one thing if you're out there making a plan and creating these situations, but you have to take that physical action. And I think that that's where a lot of people get the manifestation part mixed up. And they get all excited thinking that they can just go out there and rub some rocks together and get what they want, and I don't think it works that way.
Yeah. It's as usual. It's back to the old human aspect of accountability of yourself and the world around you and the people you love, and making those decisions. And back to as we're talking about tonight, the reality tunnel. And you can change it for sure. You can change the trajectory, the instance of what's a failure to resonate, says the Night Stalker in the chat there. And it's true. All this stuff is true. And so whether you think it metaphorically or real, sort of 2 feet planted in the real world, it's still this type of stuff is what will change the world for the better. And it's important that we did talk about this stuff. And like I said, glad to have you back. Average Discussion, name of his podcast. Please check that out. I've been listening here and there, and it is very good. And he's, as you can tell, a very smart guy. When he shows up, I'm like, no, greater than average discussion, bro. You're brilliant, and glad to have you back. Great stuff as always. Please give him a follow. I'll add you to troubledminds.org/friends. If you're not on there, and I can't remember, but it's broken right now, we'll add you to the thing, and keep on doing you, and I appreciate you very much. Always a pleasure, my man. Looking forward to talking to you in the future, okay?
Oh, thank you. And I appreciate you too, because like I said, I've reached out for some questions and you've responded, and I greatly appreciate that. So thank you.
You bet your bippy. That's what I'm here for. Let's collaborate. Let's not compete, and keep on doing you. And we'll talk to you soon. Have a great night. That's a average discussion again, and greater than average discussion, as I always say, because he's selling himself short for sure. Very smart guy. James, anything to add before we wrap this?
Just great calls from everyone, and I think I agree. It does take a lot more than just thoughts to manifest things, whatever those may be. I do wonder if that's why, in some cases, even when people sort of want to have experience in places, maybe they don't. I think part of that, I guess I'm probably going into a whole other topic there, is that they are. I guess we did talk about that earlier tonight. Maybe they don't actually want to have paranormal experiences if they go to a place. But yeah, great calls from everyone. Thank you for having me on as always.
Pleasure's mine. Pleasure's ours. You're the best. You know him, you love him. James Salcido. Check it out. Salcido Paranormal, SALSIDO, Space Paranormal. Add experiences on the end of your search there, and go buy his new book. Again, $5 Kindle, $10 paperback. Let's help our friends. Like I said, we're collaborating. We're not competing. Please, 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 let's help. Average Discussion, great stuff as well. Give him a follow. Go search it. Average Discussion. Type it in your search engine podcast. You'll find him. Like I said, I've listened to it. He's good. He's good. I'll be in touch. Average Discussion at some point. We'll try and get you on the network. Okay. I'm up to my neck with time. And that's the problem. It's always not enough time. Okay, so if you want to help Troubled Minds, you know what to do. Help our friends. All of these amazing people you hear as part of these discussions. Look, it's not just me. Like I am what's the term? Lucky enough to be in the center of this firestorm of amazing people and amazing thoughts. But this is not just me. This is us. And it's an important concept. As I've said in the past, and I'll continue to say, I'm me, you're you, but together we're us. And recognize what's happening. There's something happening. There is a quickening of sorts, and what it means, I don't know yet. But I do think that kind of widening that idea of the reality funnel is incredibly important to what humanity is and should be. But I'm just me, not the arbiter of anybody's truth, as I always say, just barely my own. But I think that's something that we should consider as next level, not metaphysics, not physics, not even science, whatever transcends those ideas in the future. And that's that. If you want to help Troubled Minds directly, spread the word. Let people know a conversation is happening that is not water cooler talk. It is water coolest talk. And we talk about weird stuff by dark of night for exactly that reason. And even on election night, we're not going to cover the election. We dodge politics as much as possible, only because I can do it, I can talk it. The problem is that it's so polarizing, their talking points, that why should we do that? We could do anything else and talk about anything else in the entire universe. And we're going to, talk about the crap they want us to talk about? Stop it. That's nonsense. If you want to help Troubled Minds, spread the word, let people know a conversation is happening, but we're not going to tell you who to vote for. By the way, I always kind of undermine voting. That's my bad. If you believe in a thing, a notion, whatever, go vote. You know what I mean? If you don't think it works, whatever. If you think it does, whatever, go do it. You're right? Do go vote. Vote your heart or whatever. I'm not going to tell you who to do or what to do, but it's one of those things where, I don't know. Is it sympathetic magic in some larger context? Maybe. Are they, playing dirty games and undermining you and disenfranchising? Maybe also, but it doesn't hurt. So I'm just saying, if you believe it, do it. Don't listen to the things I say. We're not talking politics. We're talking metaphysics and wild ideas by dark of night. So it is around that time. So I'll just say that. Do go after your heart, whatever that looks like. And I'm not in judgment in that space. But it is that time. As we finish, it goes exactly like this. Be sure, be strong, be true. Thank you for listening. From our Troubled Minds to yours, have a great night. Quick programming note, I'll do this the next time. But next Sunday, I will not be here, so we will have no show on Sunday night. I will be out of town, and we should be back on Tuesday at the regular time. And then, what is that, election night? Is it Wednesday election night? I don't know. Usually we do an election night funny thing, which is, James and I show up and we do everything but talk election stuff. But so we will have a show Tuesday, Thursday, but next Sunday, a week from tonight, we will not be doing Troubled Minds, and then we'll be back on Tuesday after that. So there you go. You guys have a great one. I appreciate you. All your ideas are incredible. You're teaching me something. I hope I'm teaching you something. Let's keep thinking. Let's keep dreaming, and keep being the best troubled mind you can be. And I'm out of here. You guys have a fantastic night.